Come on in. Come on in. Filter in, everybody. Take a seat. We're just getting warmed up. Getting all the documents sorted and everything together. A little link for everyone there. Right. Oh, and post a tweet as well. We'll bring all that together. So, come on. Find your feet. Find your feet. I'll sip my coffee while we make ourselves comfortable. Lizzie, always a pleasure. Alfred the Deluge, what ho indeed. I am on coffee too so far this morning because I had to get up stupidly early. So this is going to be a mismatch of carnage. And let me just jump over to my friends. Ah, Hindle, the whattest of hosts. Welcome. Shadow, always good, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, always a joy. Find a seat, everybody. Find a seat. I'll just let the Discord know, everyone in the Longship, because I know that we are running about 20 minutes late. But these things will happen whilst I'm unfortunately still floating around the ether. But there will come a time when I do not miss my schedule, but it is not this time. Yes, come on in, sit down, everybody, sit down. Okay. Shadow with wink, nudge, say no more. Cam the Human, always a pleasure. Got Christian chilling and illing in chat. I'm going to bring him on to vocals in just a second. Although I haven't found a good soundtrack for today. I started playing the Else Heartbreak, and I don't know, maybe it was a bit too chipper. But then we are going to be getting into the thematics, into the weeds. So perhaps are we done with the spooky soundtracks? That's the question. Right. So I forked the document from last week. So we have this. I've just thrown the link into chat. And the idea is that all of the documents that we created from last week and from this week are all going to be open source. So you are free to use it either in its entirety, or you are free to use it as a template for things existing, or what have you. I don't know what this document's going to look like by the time we're finished. Probably not the most cohesive of GDDs, but I mean, how many people are putting out GDDs for horror games? So feck it, why not, right? So I'm just bringing that up. Live horror design, the game. Okie dokie lokies. I need to see my cheeky dashboard at the top. Oh, right, I need to... there we go. 200%. And then switch over to live design. Check it out! Quizimoto! How's it going? How's it going with all of your good selves? So, come on in, take a seat. Take a seat. Right, and let's bring Christian back. Excuse me, I have this number for one Christian Jones.
Hello.
Ha! Welcome.
Excellent.
Oh, and to Artesina, thank you very much for the follow. The teeny tiny little. We're just discussing what soundtrack we should have on in the background today, so while we're kicking into this.
What was the last soundtrack? Because I arrived a bit later, so.
So last week we did. First was Darkest Dungeon, and then we did Bloodborne.
Ah, okay. So I guess we can go back in time and do Dark Souls 3.
Oh, yes. Hindle was saying Oh, would you mind if it was Dark Souls 1? Would that be okay?
Ooh, Dark Souls 1's good, yeah.
There we go.
All of them are really good soundtracks. So.
Oh, they're so good. Dark Souls 1 soundtrack full. There we go. This is a nice little backing. Switch back. I forget that everyone gets to see mine. Tol! Tol is our lurking mod for the day. Although everyone's continuing to be a lovely, lovely bunch of people. So there we go. So, yeah, first off the bat, Christian, thank you for joining us again for another live design.
My pleasure, Will. Always good to get some design in after a long day of design.
Hey, dude, would you come on my show for a few hours and do literally your job, but for free on the internet?
You know that phrase, a busman's holiday, where you just go on holiday, but you still do exactly the same thing as you do normally. Yeah, you can just do that. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. No, it's fine. I like exercising my brain on something that's different to what I'm working on, and just having a bit of fun talking to people.
Oh, and so greetings, Hindle. Greetings. Oh no, I already said hey to Hindle, but greetings, J-Post. Good to see you. And Taziria is catching up on all the Hollow Knight VODs. Oh, that reminds me that before I switch off today, I have to send over the other one from Nier Automata, which we did on Monday. And holy crap, that game! Holy crap!
It is good.
Okay, so while everyone's still filtering in, having a slug of coffee, Haze Shift, what ho indeed? How goes it? So Wraith is saying, missed the last stream, looks like I've got some reading to do. I think that's a really good springboard to go over what we did last time. So, initially starting as a comment from Windset Backwards, over a game of PlanetSide 2, was initially the question of how would you create a horror experience at an MMO scale? And... Oh, Aaron Feathers, you're not late at all. We started like 20 minutes late, so you're all good.
Plus, we've only literally just started talking.
Yeah, we've already got to the good stuff. So, we were bounding this idea back and forth whilst, fighting over the PlanetSide 2 landscape. And it was kind of one of those, Reflected Gamer, howdy friendos. It was kind of one of those ideas that didn't want to quit. You know what I mean, dude?
Yeah, it was kind of weird how we came up with our idea and how you guys came up with yours. They kind of had this parallel, that it was an idea that just kind of sat there not doing anything, but as soon as it got mentioned, it started to it just wouldn't go away. It possessed you.
Possessed with a mind. So
Exactly.
we decided to do like a day on trying to live design this horror game. And it went really, really well. And then, Christian, you joined us for the first one, for the tail end of it.
I did, yes.
And so the document in front of you, which I will intermittently post the link to in chat, which you can all comment on, because we're going to be working on this together. This was the culmination of our first session. So currently, we have an interaction method, we have a setting, we have obviously our theme. But we've got a general idea of what we're trying to create, so you can all have a look and a scroll. But I'm going to just do a quick go over. So our mission statements, the line from which everything from this game will derive: no one is safe. The elevator pitch, bearing in mind we've left the name blank, sort of on purpose. So if you want to fork this and use it as a template for a creation of your own, you're entirely welcome. And Christian, this is actually a fork of the document we did last time, so if this ends up going off in a wildly different direction, the process is still there. People can look at both.
No, it's good. I'm just having a quick skim through myself.
So the core elements that we discussed. A minimum of 20 people in our experience. Now, MMO is a loaded term these days, but the idea was that this would be a large-scale horror experience, and we decided that 20 people would be our baseline. Now, we're not working to a specific budget here, so we're kind of blue-skying it, but we're keeping everything within the realms of possibility, so we're not going to have 1 million billion people on one server. But we're also not going to worry about how much it's going to cost us to make this game, because, as we know, horror games don't sell. Not the horror games.
It's unfortunate, but they don't. Yeah.
It's not that they're not brilliant. It's just they don't sell as well. We agreed on long play sessions or long play cycles, so it's not going to be a round-based game like Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th. Horror is our goal. Our goal is to unsettle and horrify our player. It's not to jump scare them. It's not to make them feel like, they defeated the great Cthulhu by punching him in the tendrils. No. The goal is horror.
At every turn, basically, we're going to come back to these core elements to kind of keep us back on track.
Yeah. And for these will be really cool for us now, because we're going to start getting into game loop. We're going to start getting into thematics. It's going to get interesting. Then we had the threat, never defeated, only delayed. Whatever the great darkness is, whatever the evil forces enacting on our game world, they will never be defeated. And then, and this is the one that absolutely this tickles me beard. Trust is temporary. It is part of our core design element to create a scenario where trust is something that will always be undermined in some manner. Some ways small, and some ways strong. And then, so there was some elements that we agreed on as a group in the last one, which is that we wanted this game to be played from the first-person perspective, that it was going to be set in the Roaring '20s, the kind of the pulp, the pulp golden age era. The enemy would be a cosmic horror, so a horror so great, so unknowable, that you can't just punch it in the gabber.
It might not even have a gabber.
It might not even have a gabber. Think about that, everybody.
That's the tagline for the game.
It might not have a gabber.
Yeah. Does it even have a gabber? Punch it in the gabber. I don't know if it has one.
Which bit's the gabber?
Just keep punching all of it.
And also that we were going to go for a South or Central American location. Like, we were going to go riff on the whole, the dark jungles, the unexplored temples. Really take it to somewhere.
The kind of Aztec Mayan thing, where they just hyper intelligent, or was it aliens? It obviously wasn't aliens, but the idea that there's all of this kind of mystery surrounding it, especially in the 20s, but it's something that also hasn't been explored very much as a location, a theme.
I'm just going to quickly update the name of the stream to Horror Game the MMO. Does it even have a gabber?
Does it even have a gabber? Classic.
It's a horror design live group design part 2. Horror Game the MMO. Does it even have a gabber? That's a way better title.
It's very descriptive of what's going to happen here.
Yeah, you'll get to see behind the scenes there, the dashboard of Twitch. So, so in abstract,
these numbers.
Yeah. So in abstract here, we were just asking a lot of questions, and the abstract area was just putting thoughts and comments and feels. So things that we might rearrange later on. Game mechanics was again more suggestions and ideas, and these are things we're going to be coming back to. Theming. Now, we've already decided on our theming, but we went through the whole process here, and so I'm leaving this in at least for the time being. But so we broke down all the different kinds of fears, all the different kinds of horrors, and then decided from there what we should choose as our focal points. Like, this is very, very group design. We went through a selection of specific themes, so there were quite a few that we suggested. And so things like the underground cave system from Descent, the movie, and things like that, we might come back to and incorporate into our now decided time period. We decided 1930 because we wanted Zeppelins.
Yeah, we wanted Zeppelins. It's going to be the equivalent of 1920 in South America if we set it in 1930, but it does mean that we can add in things that sort of occurred or were invented between that time, just to kind of keep gameplay fresh, or to kind of get ourselves out of a bind if we find ourselves, needing something that doesn't exist.
Indeed. And then we did a whole section on the different kinds of player that will be in our experience, and ways that we can mess with them psychologically. So
yes,
acknowledging that there are explorers and socializers and non-PvP type players in our group, and then how to absolutely mess with them.
While still providing them with what they want.
Indeed.
Which is the key thing.
Yeah. And some people were putting in full proposals down here, which you are, again, entirely welcome to do. So, oh yeah, and we also had a storage bay, which was meant to be for ideas that didn't fit for anywhere else, but ended up just being, I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that, Dave. Okay, so Christian, here's the bit where, like, if I'm taking this in the wrong process, absolutely jump in. So, yep. I guess next up, we've got a location. We need to start. Now, I'm in two minds of which we should do next. Should we do our thematics? Should we really smash it down into the story, or should we start looking at the gameplay loop? Should we start looking at how the players are going to be going through this experience? What would be your recommendation?
I think we've got a theme quite. We've been quite broad with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
If we go any deeper into the story, unless you're trying to tell a story specifically, and the story is the core of your game, then it's good to be really broad about the goals and the kind of encounters or the kind of situations that you want to put players in. You've got this high-level stuff for explorers and competitors and completionists and socializers, but it doesn't have any detail. Like, are you going up against the environment? Are you going up against enemies? Are you going up against each other? Are you what are you looking for when you go and you explore this location? What are you trying to get out of it? I know that you're trying to delay this thing, but how do you delay it? So it's the kind of broad level mechanical look at the title of the game, basically. I think that's probably going to be good, because then you can match mechanics to the story, and then the story might pull out some more mechanics or give them a sort of wrapper to go into. Whereas if you do the story too much, you might get handcuffed by trying to tell this really great story, and it'll interfere with your gameplay. And if it interferes with your gameplay, no one's going to play it, and no one's going to find out this amazing story that you've written.
Yeah.
So,
especially
it seems like a bit of a catch-22, but it does actually work pretty well.
Well, it's the Lego bricks.
It depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah.
We're not trying to deliver a specifically narrative experience. We're trying to deliver a group experience, which is very tricky.
It is, but if you focus on that group experience, then the mechanics and the story can be fitted to that experience effectively. So if you keep that in mind, like these core elements, going back to them all the time. Maybe one of the core elements should be that it is about group play, so that when we go back to it, we say yes, minimum 20 people, all the rest of this kind of stuff. But make group play a core pillar, I guess, of the way that we wanted to play.
Yeah. And Last Word Hunter's like, Pinwheel's theme is definitely one of the most unsettling soundtracks I've heard. Yes, it's really doing the job. Yeah, I initially put on Else Heartbreak, and I'm like, this is too chipper. This is too chipper for...
Yeah, we've got to get in the mood. We've got to get the right mindset.
Okay, everybody, so... Emerald Billy, hello, and greetings to you.
Hello.
Super NXT. NX Super T, sorry. Or someone I called Nuxbert for so long. I'm really bad with names.
No, I mean, maybe that's... Were you corrected, effectively, or...?
I was, thankfully. And, again, everybody, if I'm saying your usernames wrong, you are entirely allowed to correct me. Okay, so, everybody, the document, part 2, the forked document, is up. So, have a look through, have a peruse. So... Yeah, so now I guess, like you say, Christian, it's time to get into our core gameplay loop, and then, because it's a multiplayer experience, so a core gameplay loop might be detrimental.
Yes, I mean, we've got a core experience that we want to have. We don't need a loop, really. What we need is something to do. What are they doing right now? So we've got the setting. We've got, the enemy that they're trying to overcome. How are they going to do that? So
don't think I don't see you guys in chat. Don't think I don't see that.
If we go back to something we mentioned in the previous version, we have this hub town. So we've got this hub town where everybody gets together and they all get into their groups. Mechanically, how that works doesn't matter. They get into a group and they go to the place that they're going to combat this ancient evil, this cosmic horror.
Okay.
So do we want that? Let's go chronologically. Do we want that sequence to be easy for them to do, or do we want the travel to be part of the gameplay?
Okay, so what are you thinking? What do you think in chat? So going over, we're in a hub town. I think, didn't we agree it was going to be a port town in Machu Picchu or somewhere like? Well, that's a mountain. You know what I mean? Nearby. That was going to be our
Peru, that kind of thing. Some sort of coastal Amazonian linked place. I haven't got a map. I'll probably bring one up. But yes, it's some sort of South American or Central American port town out in the middle of nowhere. It's only accessible by the sea, effectively, and everything else is trails carved in by locals or by just use over time by animals.
Yeah. Oh, so, yeah, Aaron Feathers now for the Deluge saying it's near that region, but it's a fictional port town, so...
Yes.
Okay, so let's... we'll just quickly bullet point these and we can tie them up later. So, hub world as staging point. We agreed that that we were only going to have a basic gesture communication. Because that was
with the other inhabitants.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the other players, but just with the NPCs, the characters that you'll meet.
Yeah. Now,
language.
The community manager in me says just give the players in the world the same basic communication, because the ones that know each other will use Discord or whatever to communicate, and the ones that don't, you're limiting the amount of ways that they can mess with each other.
It's entirely possible, but what you want to do is you set up a situation where everything is fine at first. So the cosmic horror thing is usually set in a location or in a time or in a situation where everything is fine and yet everything's not fine. So if we save that language barrier, we can use that to mess with people later on down the line. Everybody's communicating totally fine, everything's great and wonderful, and now we've screwed them up by saying you have to communicate in however much of this language that you know.
Yeah.
This is how you communicate, this is how you get things across, because nothing else will work. Maybe you have to have an interpreter, maybe you're speaking through some entity or to an entity which only speaks this language. So you can have Discord all you want. It's not really going to help you when we tell you that you can only communicate like this at this point, and we spring that on the player.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So what you were saying about like setting a precedent, setting a tone essentially. So I guess that's going to be one of our core jobs in creating a gameplay experience, is that I guess we need to set a baseline of interaction that we can mess with.
We've already got this kind of baseline that we were talking about before. Your explorers, your treasure hunters, your looters and grave robbers and tomb raiders.
Yeah.
So you're all here specifically because either a dark entity told you to, or because you want to get something out of it.
Yeah. I liked the bored debutante kind of. You've been all around the world. You've got a collection of treasures and whatnot.
That Johnny Foreigner had in his country, and now you have in your stately home back in the UK.
Indeed. And much like with Darkest Dungeon, it allows us to set almost it allows us to set a very simple premise as to why we're there.
So we've already got this established thing where you are the exotic thing that has come into this world, and you've got all of your supplies, or you don't. You've got your group together. Do we want I think we want the journey to kind of hint at what's going to happen without sort of you walk out of the town and suddenly a big gribbly monster comes and attacks you.
Yeah. So I guess
think that kind of journey sets the tone for what's going to happen later.
Hey Sagathan, hey Windset Backwards, just saying hi, Hattie.
Hey guys.
I mean, I think I am not drawing from enough different sources mentally right now, but the thing I'm reminded of is Payday 2's multi-stage missions, where they are flashpoints along a journey, and they don't necessarily do enough with the UI to indicate that you're on a journey.
Yeah, they do a lot of audio stuff. So when you're in the back of the van, if anybody's played it, Payday is a game about people heisting banks and jewelry stores, or just working for mobsters effectively. But you've got this van that takes you into missions and brings you out of them, and it can be ambushed sort of part way along your journey if you've did really badly in the previous one, or if it's part of a multi-part, a multi-day heist. So, the idea that you could encounter something en route is good. I like that there's a chance that something happens, but maybe it's just a narrative thing. Like you'll look up into the sky, and you'll swear that little patch of blue, like, looked back at you as you were traveling. But you discounted it. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it.
Everything's fine. So here's me thinking, like, I mean, pacing is one of the important elements in horror, right? So, like, I mean, it's a large-scale multiplayer project. If we're instancing the travel, not necessarily all of the combat, we can put, if have we agreed a basic team size? Because we agreed 20 people experience, right? But, if you've only got a small little automobile that can travel like a small chunky track, or maybe we ask players to make the journey on foot from varying locations, like, so our gameplay sessions, we said long gameplay sessions, right? We make the player travel to where they're going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we can give them lots of different options as well. So, as they progress and they find out more about what's going on, or they get more resources, we can give them different options, and depending on how they travel, we can give them different experiences. Say walking takes the longest amount of time, but it's the most reliable, and it's the quietest, so you might be able to slip past things that would ordinarily notice you. If you take a car, you can only have a small amount of people, and it's going to be a Jeep, and it's going to be something that requires gas and maintenance, or it could break down, or and it makes a lot of noise. Similarly, a big flatbed military truck kind of thing can include all of the players, but if you're including all of the players, then you give them an experience which deals with that size of people. So,
Christian,
you've got these different experiences for different sizes of group.
So articulating on that, one thing that Queasy threw in was... So one thing we've seen that's worked really well is, obviously, everyone's all abuzz with the Battle Royale modes at the moment. But it struck me that if we have server architecture that can handle those large-scale maps, so your different transport method puts you in a different place. As you were saying, quieter is safer, and that might work very well with where you are dropped into a large-scale map. Because
we said that this location that you go into could be sort of city-sized, so it stands to reason that you could go into that location through multiple points.
So transport method as part of the experience. Yeah, you get to hear all that tippity-tappity.
And then putting something down like encounters based on group size. So if it's you and a buddy and you guys have got a car, then it'll know that there's only 2 people who are traveling at that specific point, or
Okay.
who have moved into the travel stage, and then it will pick from a list of things appropriate for 2 players, rather than something that's appropriate for like 10 players.
So we could... Okay, so we could scale the base conflict points based on number of players in group.
And it doesn't even need to be a conflict. It can be something... You can have an interactive encounter or a passive encounter. So just given text or a picture or just a little sort of cutscene type thing,
Yeah.
just to kind of set the mood. Or you could have something which means that that group of people, those 10
Well-
guys who are all in a truck, they'll actually arrive late because they're busy dealing with something that has stopped them from getting there.
That's a really... Okay, yeah. So that's definitely one that I want to... potential encounters en route. So what it means is that if you have a situation that's going to require multiple groups to tackle, you split everybody up, and some people show up late. And again, even if they're on Discord, they're like, I don't know what's happening, we're over here. So again, discombobulate, disorganize. Let's take organized players and let's put them on the back foot.
Especially because we've got this time-based thing that you're doing. You're delaying something, which means that something is already on the countdown. You're just spinning the sand timer around again and again and again, making sure that it doesn't run out of sand. So, people who are doing badly or who have an encounter that takes a long time to complete, they'll be less useful, or they'll they won't be able to help you.
It means we
turn
can
the egg
undermine the players that try and game the system. Like, going back to our Bartles taxonomy of players. We have the optimal strategist, the person who will take the best build, the best equipment, the best stuff. We already said we want to make a game where the wiki is damn near useless. So, bringing exactly the right kit and stuff. Wraith's saying, you could change the route, have it loop round itself and confuse and defy the player. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Those kind of things are really good for horror. The sort of the fog maze kind of thing, where you go round a circle, and that route didn't exist before. I'm in the Great Forest in Zelda, where the Master Sword is. I have to choose the right route in order to get to where I am, and maybe we just force them to make bad choices, effectively, and just to delay them by half an hour or so.
I need to keep being users rather than players. Yeah, discombobulate. Okay, so these are just, again, we're going to start smashing these together, everybody, but this is a hot mix. So win set backwards. The reason why we're not going to do any interactions with third-party tools is because those end up being players end up just working a way around them. So
you have to keep up to date with them as well. So
while we could contact Discord and try and get there to be a Discord element that messes with them, it's not a trivial amount of work. And as communication methods change, like someone who's using Discord on their phone, there's no way for the game to know they're playing the title at the same time. It's
quite a complicated thing to have it with a third party, unless you're working directly with the third party in order to develop this.
Yeah. So
then you access the game through Discord, for example.
Also, Trazilla has hit upon what we spoke about in the last one, Christian, a whole bunch, which was one game that was really good at taking organised communication and making it ineffective was keep talking and no one explodes. Yes.
Yeah.
Beck, yes.
Yes, that was really good. The way that I would like this to play out would be that you would get a certain level of information which would be accurate, but only the first time that you use it. So it's almost like you have this book, and this book can tell you everything, but you can only open it a certain amount of times, and then that's it.
It's yeah. But so getting back onto the high level stuff. So I like the idea of dropping our players in one big environment. I mean, there might be multiple locations, but rather than building like, 20 or 30 like small maps a la Payday, we build maybe like 3 or 4, and maybe our players will only spend a little bit of time on the outskirts. But so here's my thinking from a technical standpoint, Christian. And again, everybody in chat, I'm just waiting for more ideas to pour in. And please do either at me or Christian when you're making suggestions, because it makes it really easy to see. Actually, you don't need to. It's very helpful. So
I am the Rustweaver, by the way, if you didn't know. Hi.
There's a thing you didn't think you'd say today.
Yeah.
So if we can, maybe not shard, but if we can break down our large-scale map into chunks, we can basically track players within areas using, like, procedural generation and all sorts of nonsense. Like we were saying, looping them back around in infinite forests and shit like that.
Yeah. There's a gameplay term which we use a lot in dev, which is smoke and mirrors.
Oh god, yeah.
And that's what a lot of stuff is. It's just smoke and mirrors. You can't see behind this wall because we've just put something that blocks you from seeing it. There is absolutely nothing behind that wall. Nothing. Zero. It's not a facility. It's not a mountain. It's not anything at all. It's just nothing. So we can do that quite successfully. We'll be building towards that, but also people will expect it, and we can give them their expectation and then wildly change it.
So shard sections to allow for what did I call it? Player fuckery. That's not really a good term, is it?
Player fuckery. You use the word discombobulation. That's a good one.
I'm gonna go for trapping users. So
trapping and delaying users.
Yeah.
Delaying is a good one because that reminds us that we actually want. The goal of it is to delay them. It's to set the pacing, but also to stop them from getting to where we want them to be, or where they want to be.
Yeah, so jumping back into chat, so here's some of the things we got. So the Artsy Pie was suggesting perhaps the map could be inconsistent between players, since they don't know what they... since they wouldn't be incredibly consistent in that time anyway, make it much more confusing for them to meet up. Yes. Now,
yes,
what
I like that.
Yeah. Because here's what I'm thinking. 20 people face rolling against a giant horror is a raid, and that's a very hard thing to keep serious because of the sheer number of users. But if we have
there's a lot going on.
We have multiple users, and there's a situation whereby 20 to 30 people will come together to tackle the great horror, but then some will be working with like multiple different agendas. I think we can come up with some interesting stuff. Because
I agree, yeah.
If horror is all about pacing, we want to make players feel shitty, scared, and alone at first, and then bring them all together and make them feel great and powerful and lovely. Then make them feel uneasy as they start betraying them. And then, towards the end, we want to separate them, maybe from their friends, maybe separate them with a group of people they don't know, they never signed up for.
I really enjoy that kind of thing where it always happens in the movie where you're following two characters set up with a group of other people, and they don't know these other people too well, and then something will separate them. A big a cave-in or some sort of trap will separate the groups off, and they'll have to go their separate ways with people they're not quite sure about. And we could also thinking about the things that delay. If there are people working at different agendas, it could come across that they're not being waylaid by creatures or by this nameless horror. They're being waylaid by something that they are doing which will help them fuck other people over.
And then we've got a
So
situation.
they'll meet up with like a local militia or a drug lord or something like that, and he's like, "Oh well, I've got all this equipment, but you need to like give us one of the people that's in your group." So we could have the horror of humanity, as well as the cosmic horror.
Yeah, and for one and all, the reason why that's so powerful is that we know our players will have a certain level of game literacy, so they will understand the difference between the horror of an NPC providing things that are awful and the horror of the experience that they will go through. But it keeps the tone and it balances it, because we understand an NPC giving us potentially horrific tasks. But... so jumping back into chat, Winset saying it would be kind of fun to have routes that actually need strange actions to go through it. Basically like circle track 2 laps and then trek the other way to reveal the path. Yeah, because if we're going to have a large area, and if we have a certain level of inconsistency in terms of when that works and when that doesn't, then you end up with that wonderful thing we spoke about in the first episode, the Deus Ex, the split story. My brother didn't survive Deus Ex, but someone else's did. I did the 2 laps round the tree and pinned the voodoo doll and nothing happened and I wasted this item. But another player was like, no, I did exactly that. And it opened up, a portal to the City of Gold. I lost my arm in there, but, we can use inconsistency to discombobulate. And then... Yeah. Scrolling down, Quasimoto saying this is very much sounding like instances maps will be procedurally generated to some degree. Yeah, that's what Christian was saying about smoke and mirrors. So we have one big ass map, and with no fuckery, a player could walk from one side of the end of it to the other and back. However, what we've done is we've broken it down into sections. So if a group of players are in our little corner here, and they start walking off towards the jungle, this jungle is actually a procedurally generated bubble, a teeny tiny little instance that they're stuck in. And that jungle will go on forever. It will loop for eternity. How do they get out of that? And someone else can come to the exact part of the jungle where they should be, but they're not there.
And this is the kind of thing where you can fuck with people even more so. We can put them in the same world and do what World of Warcraft does, or what other MMOs do, which is called ghosting. But you're in the same environment, you're in the same part of the world, it's swapped out all of the assets for something else. Yeah. So you could see people, but you couldn't interact with them. Yeah. Or you could see the recorded progress that they'd made, or it's just like, oh, that's my friend. You could see a kind of mirage of players.
That could be a very powerful tool for us.
Yeah, that's the jungle fucking with you.
Yeah. So jumping back into chat. Yeah, last word, Hunter. Overabundance of information, making it difficult to track what you're looking for. It's a needle in a haystack.
Mm-hmm. Once you get a certain level of player, they will start getting this kind of encyclopedic knowledge. So what you do with those kinds of players, or in that kind of situation, is you try and make sure that the knowledge means nothing. So yes, you're going up against a blue slime, and the blue slime requires you to use anything except for electricity. Yeah. But that's not what this is about. This is something completely different. So the book that you used previously, or the information you used previously in your run out there, is now useless to you. Yeah. So it's almost better to have information that is half right or partially true, and then we shift it, rather than giving them too much information, because that can turn people off. Yeah. That's like the sort of spreadsheet MMO, which, so there's a lot of people that like it, and
yeah, it's an entirely valid form of game.
Eve and Mech Warrior do that really well, where they give you a lot of complexity, and it all fits within the world. It's just that sometimes that can provide a barrier to an emotional experience, which is the kind of thing that we want. We want a horror experience rather than a spreadsheet experience, in a sense.
I am going to put on the gameplay experience slow pacing. while there may be like high-speed action elements at some points, like, yeah, taking time to breathe, taking time to feel the world will be very important for us. And we know
horror
that people
has like pauses in it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, people don't really get that. If you're scaring people all the time, then it doesn't become scary anymore. It loses that edge.
We know that works from, again, I guess pulling from Battlegrounds. Like, we know people like that pacing. People are happy to sit in a building for 10 minutes. It's just the experience needs to give them a reason, almost a reward for. But anyway, so I'm going to jump back into chat. So, yeah, Mr. SVCD.
Mr. SV's
saying what you were saying. Aaron Feathers, I like what the last word Hunter suggested. Cool. Alpha the Deluge, if we do those big maps, could we do multiple variations of them that only have small, subtle changes? Just enough to confuse that there was something that wasn't on the last map. So the answer in the broad strokes is yes. That would just be a case of how we would implement it. So we probably wouldn't build multiple giant maps. Like, we probably wouldn't copy-paste the same map 3 times and then tweak little bits of it there. We'd probably work out another way of messing with people, but yes.
There's an algorithm which you can use sometimes, or it's sometimes built into engines themselves, where you have a sort of list of assets, and you can place them all in the same container, and then say randomize between these assets. So when you look at something, in procedural generation, they use that in order to make something feel right, but feel different every single time. If you put something in that's kind of spooky, or something that is there temporarily, it has a time limit on it. So when you look away and you look at it and you go, oh, I've seen that tree, it's totally fine, and then it suddenly changes into a lamppost. You're like, wait a minute. That was definitely a tree, wasn't it?
We do ambient occlusion on the trees, but we change what the trees look like.
Yeah. So you can have a face appearing in the tree, and it's like, I saw a face in the tree, and everybody looks at it, no face there.
Yeah.
Totally different, totally different thing, totally different tree. You're seeing things, man.
Seeing things.
Are you okay?
Is the graphics card fine? Yeah. So continuing on chat, Windset Backwards says, imagine getting to the end of this evil... Okay, that might be a little far in the... I'm going to read your comment, Windset, but it might be a little far in, because we're still going for kind of the general gameplay experience as a whole. So, concepts in... Not concepts in abstract anymore, but more like experiences that players will have directly in our worlds, which are going to denote a lot of our design as we move forward. But what Windset said...
They can have a kind of narrative wrapper around them, but they're essentially mechanical experiences in a sense.
So Winter said, imagine getting to the end of this evil, this prophet trying to kill himself before he brings the attention of the great cosmic evil, just to realise the other groups have killed about 80% of the raids due to misunderstandings, insanities and betrayal. Oh, that could be funny. I mean,
that's how we want the game to feel in the end.
Yeah.
For sure.
Then Sagathanis says, are we allowing a dedicated planning room area in the hub so they can think they're figuring it out before they go into the field and realise they know nothing? Shit, yes. Let these players spend hours mapping it out.
Yeah, because they know that 50% of the information they get is going to be completely useless. So if they get 2 pieces of information, the likelihood is that one or the other of them, or probably both, are going to be completely useless. But the more they go in with, the more chance that they'll have of having a bit of a picture, never 100%, but the more work they do beforehand, the more it'll actually benefit them. So we have this actual reward for a play, rather than people just running in there and doing everything with everything in order to sort of brute force the solutions to problems.
So Sagathan's made a really interesting point, and one that I think we should probably put into words now, which is, I assume we'd need to communicate that, at least that a little bit, on the subject of like randomized elements. I can't imagine it would be fun to face roll like a plain critical thing with just a random chance of it working or not. That doesn't sound scary, that sounds frustrating. So whenever We will have a definitive amount of ways that users can interact with the world, and they will get back from that I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it, dude. So, like, if you push forward on your keyboard, you will always move forward. If you fire a gun, it will impact. What we will randomize, what we will mess with, are the elements of the world. There'll never be a point whereby it's like, okay, well, I have a 1 in 6 chance of winning this game. Oh, I rolled not right. Now I've lost. Everything sucks. But
yeah, the last thing that you want to do with players is to frustrate them, and one of the best ways to keep players coming back isn't to punish them for doing badly. It's basically like in game shows. Here's what you could have won if you'd just been a bit better, if you just planned a little bit more, if you just tried something instead of another thing. You've still got this reward. Here's your cake. Here's your $200 gift card. But you could have won the car.
Could have won
so
a
it's
yacht.
like, oh, wait a minute. And it's like, oh, this is a good reward for the time that I spent. But if I spend a bit more time, I could get an even bigger reward.
Yeah.
So you don't punish them for doing badly, in a sense. You reward them more for doing well.
And
but there's always a kind of baseline win if they follow the rules, if they play the game as we would like them to play it, betraying other people, and taking chances. They should be able to get something out of each of these encounters.
Yeah. With the walk around the tree 2 times and pin a doll to it, like, it's not that that's an element that they would necessarily need to do for victory, but perhaps it's a way that, that one time that they unlock a small, like, corner of the world that isn't usually seen. More whimsy-shire, less critical damage.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something as simple as, I found a scrap of information about this that might be true or might not be true because I spent the time researching it.
Yeah.
I have this doll because it said you had to have a doll, so let's try and do this. Okay, I should have walked around the tree 3 times instead of 2. That was the piece of information that was wrong. But I have, taken off 15 minutes of time. Rather than taking off an hour like it would have done, it's taken off 15 minutes.
Something
which is still a reward.
Yeah. But it's not a press X not to die, or, roll dice to win. We want to mess with the world. We want to mess with the player, but not with... It's not a randomizer. So, jumping back into chat... Shadow was asking on, what about the ghosts in the game that can hurt you, but they could also be those of players separated from you? I don't see a...
I really like that idea. So I also like the idea that if we had mods, if we had other people who are going to be working for the games company, effectively managing the system and being GMs, effectively, they could take on the persona of a player. Yeah. So they could pretend to be a player when actually they're a monster wearing that player's face. So it's like, I thought we got separated from the group. You're part of a group that I don't know, but you're definitely a player. Yeah. It's like, of course I'm a player. What else would I be? Let's go along this adventure and let's have all this fun.
Oh, dude!
And then
one of your teams...
then they meet up. Oh. Then they meet up with those people again. It's kind of like, shoot the bad one. He's the bad one. No, I am. No, he is.
And because
it's that.
Because what you can do is like one thing we've talked about is the cosmic bargain, which I want to hang on, because we haven't really given it any thematics. But the idea, I've said the comic bargain, Jesus. The cosmic bargain being the idea that the game or whatever the entity that we come up against will say, I will offer you X in exchange for Y, or you do this for me, or I will do this to you. Your team is put in a horrendous situation. And maybe you fight your way out of it, maybe you don't. But the creature goes, your life is lost. But I will trade you back X, or I will offer Y in exchange for this murder. You be my avatar, you be my creature. And I will, and I will allow you to progress. So, like you were saying, like the person that comes back into the other team, that's a player. That's a player wearing a human mask, and people
working for the enemy.
Yeah, people are the squirreliest fuckers. You know, we could spend fucking 10 years trying to make AI that pretends to be like an active player and maybe sometimes succeeds. But what if we just make people evil?
It's basically the essence of a probably the first first person shooter. The first kind of combative thing was, you know what, we can't really, you know, we're going up against all of these things and it's great and all, but what if we just set everybody against each other? You know, what would that be like as a game experience? And that's the essence of competitive play.
Yeah.
Effectively. It's setting people against each other for a reward. It's just that those guys don't know that it's a reward. It could be something that they get separated and this offer comes in even before they get to the place. This could be part of the travel time.
Yeah.
That they get pulled aside and they get pulled out and they're like, well, you know, I could kill you right now and I could kill everybody in that vehicle, but give me one of them and all of the rest of them live.
Yeah, the
okay,
thing
go
we
back
were
to
talking
your
about
party
last
now.
time. You
you go back to your party now. Everything's great.
Oh, dude, that's so good. So the
But
travel.
if they know, and if you tell them, or if you do things which set up a situation like that, then, or if you just randomly go back and kill somebody, then maybe there's even deeper rules about how you're supposed to do this, like at a specific point, or when told, do this thing.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's so good. Or just await further instructions. Is there anything more terrifying? Because
that's so good.
Because there's somewhere they'll obviously tell their friends. If you're on the car journey, like so, Christian, you and I have been playing games together for years. If we're on the car journey and the mysterious voice tells me like await further instructions, I'm obviously going to tell you, dude, something cool's going to happen. But that can almost, if we accept that our players are going to do that, we can use it to our favor.
I mean, we could set this up so that it's something that happens way further along. We've got these long play sessions. You'll have been working with these people. The big cosmic evil or the cosmic entity hasn't said anything to you for an hour.
Yeah.
And then we're in the final fight where we're doing the last puzzle. We're trying to escape, and it's it just says trip your friend up.
Yeah. Lock the doors.
That's it. Just lock the door. Lock the door and lock your friend in. Otherwise, I'm killing all of you, and all of this time that you've spent will have been wasted. But you can offset that by giving me him.
So jumping back into chat really quickly. So a few people were on the randomization element on the others. So like Sagathan and people were like, I've been told I need to do X, Y, and Z to make it happen, and if we can do that well, we'll get access to this point, and then we can get one of 3 possible MacGuffins, and if they do, surprise, it doesn't work, but it worked for 2 of their other companions 2 hours ago.
It shouldn't be that binary. It shouldn't be the kind of thing which is, you get no MacGuffin for 2 hours, for hours and hours of work. Maybe you get a slightly lower grade version of the thing. You're still rewarded for doing it. You should always be rewarded for doing something, whether it's the game experience. There are some games which are fun to lose at. Dark Souls is particularly difficult, but sometimes it's fun. They make losing fun. Because
we used it as like
something will come out of left field, or it'll be big and impressive, and the dragon will set fire to you, and it's like, wow, that looked really good. Shame I died, but that was really cool. That was a really cool way to die.
I mean, I don't know.
So we really don't want them to.
But like the example I used for Dark Souls and stuff like that was like failure state as content, so that if you're losing or dying, it is enriching your experience in some manner, like Iron Man mode, like Dark Souls, and some of the other ones in chat. Wraith with sometimes putting an idol on an altar gets you an ancient text with a clue for later. Sometimes it just sits there and does nothing, making player question when and where they want to use the items. That's a very good point.
we need to put something in about player feedback, messing with player feedback. So there was desktop dungeon, weirdly,
Yeah.
of all things, has got some really good ways of messing with the player, because sometimes when you play it and you haven't read anything about it, or a wiki or something,
Yeah.
you go up to an altar and you pledge your service to this god.
Yeah.
We have no idea what it's going to do. It just says, excellent, good for you. It's like, but what's it done for me?
Yeah.
Has it made enemies harder? Has it made them easier? Has it given me a tool that's in my inventory now? What has it done? Diablo and Diablo 2 did that really well with the shrines and the fountains. They would come with a poem, and sometimes it was difficult to figure out what they'd actually done to you
Yeah.
at that time. And it's that kind of thing which I really like, that you'll get a response, but it might just be a response of, the stars seem a little brighter. So, but I put a thing on the altar, and last time it gave me some sort of like weird feathery thing that helped me out further along in the dungeon. And it's like, well, you've no idea what it did. The stars may have aligned and made things harder, or made some things harder and some things easier, increased your chance of encountering this kind of situation instead of this kind of situation.
Indeed. I mean, if we've got a way of way of tracking player interaction, we could, using the newspaper system which we discussed in the last episode, we could let players know what they did. And even if it's a fictitious reason, like, again, smoke and mirrors, we can let the player know that they tried something and it didn't succeed, and here's why, but only after their experience has been a full loop. So perhaps we can use the newspaper to reinforce these elements, so they don't feel like they're playing bloody Surgeon Simulator. They don't feel like they're just rubbing objects against other objects and hoping it works. Like you were saying, the stars align. There's a reaction from the game that you have done a thing. Only this time it didn't do the same thing that you thought it would, or the thing that you wanted it to.
Exactly. So it might be something that would benefit a different kind of player. Say that it increases your chance of having skill-based sort of trap things.
Jeremiah Weller! The stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas! Sorry.
Very true. Following on from that, Quasimodo says, saying things like, instead of the stars seem a little brighter, you make the stars brighter. Yeah, things like that. Relating it back to the player's interactions, or maybe even better, something like, the stars seem brighter to you. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because we've got this cosmic entity with the idea that every star is a potential horror waiting in the vast cosmos of space. Maybe you've drawn their attention to you, which is a bad thing, even though it looks like it's a good thing. Quasimodo also talked about having the sort of inverse physical appearance of a player replaced with a monster. I quite like that idea that you're sort of wandering around and friends seem like enemies seem like friends.
Yeah.
That scene from the first Batman movie, where the fear toxin makes everybody look like a monster. That kind of thing is really good, especially when you're in an encounter with a creature. So it'll just make lots and lots of copies of itself, and then hit you with some sort of fear effect, and now you don't know which is a real enemy and which is a friend and which is a copy.
Yep. And we can do some really clever things, because I mean, we agreed this in the first episode. Like, in those kinds of situations, we don't render player characters for each other, and it's like a sea of monsters. Some of them will do damage, some of them won't. Blast them all as quick as possible, but there's a real chance that, in your haze, you're gonna put a couple of bullets into your friendos. So at this point, like, the way I'm seeing our gameplay experience is that it's one big feck-off map with lots of little bits of, forgive the term, but little bits of fuckery, like little pockets of fuckery, which is trying to push everyone together to do the same experience. So essentially, our gameplay is going to be like one long as fuck game that you play with everybody. So, you know, the sessions could be, I mean, 10 to 15 minutes if you get yourself murder-rated and nothing happens, but as long as 2 hours. So it's not like you're leveling to build up to a raid. You're hoping to survive long enough in the jungle to get to the point to do the thing. It's almost...
It's kind of like a PUBG type thing. You know, you want to be able to sort of get together, but sometimes it's, you know, you're one of the first people killed. Somebody, you know, throws a tire, or you get out to fix the car and you get bitten by a snake and you're dead.
Yeah. These things... and I'm just gonna... So, again, this is free design, so there are no... it's not a bad ideas type scenario. But, so Shadow Wolf was saying we could go a bit Spec Ops Align in the direction of occasionally giving direct messages to the player. Because we're in a large-scale experience, we would need to save anything meta-narrative for absolute pinnacle stuff. Because we're already going to be asking a lot of suspension of disbelief because of the number of users in the experience. Like, they're going to be having a fun old time when 2 teams meet up and their goals align and they're not trying to murder each other. Oh boy, that's like 8 to 10 players and they've all got...
Well,
yeah.
Not to overuse the thing, but when the stars align, everything goes well.
When the stars align. Oh.
But looking in chat, Erin Feathers had a really good idea, which is
go for it.
that you have these secret deals, but what if they were made public? So you didn't know that they were made public, but everybody gets told that you're the bad person. You're going to be doing this bad thing. So they all start turning towards you and waiting for you to enact your plan, to be told what the greater evil has in store for you.
Oh, the cosmic bargain is also made known.
Yes, so that could be a variant of the cosmic bargain that everybody else knows something about you. Maybe this is something that you did as a setup for going out here to this location. You made a cosmic bargain beforehand, and you were like, "Oh no one will find out because it's not in the main game. No one will." I did that like 2 days ago when I was prepping for a completely different thing. And it's like, but you know, we're gonna call in that favor now, and everybody knows you're gonna call in that favor just to fuck with you.
So I've gone with the cosmic truth. The great unknown makes your plans, puts your plans out.
All.
Yeah. The great threat, because it's not the great unknown. The great threat makes your plans known to all. And, you know, we can use that in a myriad of ways. We can use it in the sense of, you know, the thing you've been scheming is undermined. But also, we could mark a player for death. Because that's not going to necessarily reinforce the horror elements, but it's going to reinforce the trust no one. Like, if you're in a team of 4 and your friendo is marked for death, you're probably not going to turn around and cap them in the face, because that's just not how player behavior tends to be.
And it might be better for you to save that player's death for when it's a time that's most appropriate for you, which was the idea that we kind of touched on last time, where sacrificing people's sanity as a resource is best done when it is of greatest benefit to you or to the group, whichever you feel.
Yeah. I mean, so Appcarnist is saying that not all the cosmic bargains will be bad, or else players will just automatically kill themselves. That's very true. But sometimes you will be offered something, or sometimes the choice will be put to you. So the idea of, as we were saying in the first one, kill one of your friends, or I'll kill all 3 of your friends. You know, if you kill yourself, your other 3 friends are toast. And if you're
it could be something as simple as, give me something from your bag, give me something important from your bag. You've got all these resources, you've got all these things. Give me your rope.
Yeah.
I say, but I might need my rope for something else. I might need it for an encounter, or a puzzle, or to go down somewhere. It's like, I don't care. Give me your rope, or something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to take things from other players. Or I'm going to randomize your inventory. I'm going to give your rope to someone who's in another map somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, the lure of it, we can always bribe players. So to Abcarnist, one of the easiest things, one of the things that designers have been doing for as long as they've been games, is you can bribe the player. Do this thing and you are rewarded. Win a game and you are the winner. That is your reward. Take this square and you are given 200 fun bucks. We're really good at rewarding our players.
It's true.
So.
I like Shadow Wolf 94's thing as well, which is just putting up little tiny bits of information. Like, don't you think player name is acting strange? It's like they've got this weird shifty look in their eyes. Maybe you need to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, the jungle
and
whispers.
It's just sowing misinformation or correct information. You don't know.
Yeah.
Who should you trust? Who should you not? That's why we have no safe spaces at all.
Yeah.
Emerald Billy and Aaron Feathers. Nowhere is safe. But we do have spaces where no one is safe. We do have spaces where the tempo, the pacing goes down, but we don't want to ever remove it. So you'll always feel uncomfortable. Like you'll go into a room and nothing will be happening, so you can rest. So everybody sort of sits down and has some water or eats some food or something like that and starts to discuss what might happen later on. And then it's kind of like those bits in Darkest Dungeon when you rest. Yes, you're resting and you're getting all of these things back, but you're still in this dungeon. You're still in this place, which is eerie and spooky, that's sort of playing on your mind and trying to sort of influence you. So I think there's no such thing as safe, only safer, I think is something that we used when we were making Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
There's nowhere that's 100% safe. There are safer places, but they're still keeping the theme, keeping the pacing, keeping the tempo, just like that little musical score that never really stops.
Yep.
But it's always kind of there, just at volume level 1 rather than 25.
Also, Last Word Hunter, this is one of those ones where we have to take into consideration actual player behavior. So while it's always great to look at the ideals, we have to take into consideration all kinds of players. So Last Word Hunter was saying that I wanted to elaborate on the idea of rewarding betrayal. If you play in a group, rewarding more conflict goals could lead to internal strife. Like one player being rewarded more than other players that are with you, but another one was more likely to get a head start if a monstrosity catches them by killing a members off their group. People find the reward enticing enough. The leader should start keeping... Well, so what tends to happen in those situations where it's reward-led is that the group just shares information. They find out the optimal method for... Oh, Lumpy Touch! Thank you for the auto-host. Very kind.
Hey.
Players tend to look at what the optimal amount of reward is, work together, and then kill each other. Because if rewards are their goal...
Or kill the right people.
Yeah. So they'll be like, oh, I've got this betrayal. Oh, I've got this betrayal. Oh, cool. If I do this, this gives us the most amount. Blam, blam, blam. Because players do communicate.
I mean, not having an official hierarchy is really good because that allows players to create their own hierarchies, create their own experiences, rather than having a leader of the expedition. It also kind of removes the specialness, I guess, of each of the players. If they're all debutantes or they've all got their own backstories, in MMOs like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online, you are the important person. You are the important thing. Anything that sort of moves away from that makes you feel less important. And all this time that you've invested in your character, in your skills, your abilities, or your backstory, becomes not useless, but it's almost downgraded in the face of having somebody who's leading the expedition.
Yeah.
So if all of these people are just they're all like superheroes in their own movies, and they're coming together for Infinity War or Civil War. They're all important. It's just they happen to share the same goals, and they're working together to do it. But they have their own personal goals that they want to achieve.
Yeah.
And we want the the sort of betrayal to be naturally led rather than be rewarded in that sense. So you could be rewarded, but it's a reward which has a double-edged sword. Yes, you've gotten an extra ability, but you had to lose a hand to do it.
I mean,
so,
I really liked the it's something that Games Workshop did really well, at least thematically, with like Mordheim and Necromunda and things like that. Of, you know, while your characters don't very rarely die like on their first encounter, you know, they continue, they persist. So so I've made a little section here which is character death. What does this mean for the user? And Alice is currently throwing in some thoughts, but please don't overwrite what Alice has put. Actually, let me just approve that comment. But this is one where I'd like everybody's thoughts and feels. So add a chunk what you think what death should look like for the user. Now, maybe going out into the field and getting, air quotes, defeated doesn't mean death for your player. Maybe that is another element, another element of removal. Or maybe we tell everyone from the go, your character will die a lot, and you're going to have a bunch of different characters. You know, we were saying about like your player name is chosen from a list of existing things, and you want to try and take a character through. Unique. Yeah, so what you might want to do is roll in with a group, get kind of far into the jungle, and then be like, we don't have the gear, we don't have the power or the time to make it to the city of gold in the center, to make it to the unearthed temple of darkness. Maybe we should bug out with what we've got. So, I mean, Tarkov's done a real good job.
Yeah. We could turn around and say that no one's ever really defeated, but it changes the way that your character advances. The more that you're defeated, the more stuff that you lose. Maybe it starts affecting your character, and your character shifts to a kind of darker version of it.
Could be.
Which changes the way that you play the game without losing your character. Your character's more and more insane, more sort of gritty, more nihilistic.
It also
maybe
means
they start getting more bargains from things because it just changes the way that you play rather than stopping you from playing that character.
Yeah, and by having that kind of that element, it allows us to keep track of how long a player has been playing a particular character, and we can stagger how much they get messed with depending on how much the darkness of the world observes them. You know, the more the cosmic horror knows of your existence, the more it's gonna mess with you. It knows you can't.
Which could mean.
Yeah, it knows you can't.
Which could mean the best people. It could mean the best people, the people who are doing the best effectively with their characters, get noticed, and the people who are doing the worst might get noticed as well. So the cosmic bargain might be something as grand as we can get you back to where you started. You know, we can remove all of this insanity from you. We can get you back to where it is that you started, but you're going to have to give us something big for this. I like the Shadow Wolf's thing where when you're resting, you can try and contact the dark entity that gave you your bargain, but you could get noticed, and maybe some of your bargain is overheard by other players.
Yep.
Because what you want is more detail. They've given you something that says await further instructions, and if you keep poking at them, they might tell you a bit more about what the nature of the task that they've given you is.
Oh. So here's where I'm starting to see how this game is feeling. This game probably is like 2-hour-long sessions on big, feck-off, open, but, shifting maps. There are multiple groups all in the world. They are not at odds with each other necessarily. So if you come across another group of people, you do not need to immediately murder them. There's nothing to be gained from that. But
necessarily.
Yeah. In fact, the more groups that are alive towards the end of the session, the better. But it's almost like we're setting it up like a board game, like a LARP, like a one-shot. The players are assembled. Different bargains are struck and set in the world. There is almost a simple goal, which is whatever whatever is at the heart of the temple, whatever is at the excavated. And the closer you get to the center, the better the chances of coming away with something glorious. And Veckery is going to happen. It's the town of Salem meets fucking Battlegrounds. Or maybe closer to like Far Cry, but yeah.
Effectively, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the players to walk that fine line between helping themselves and helping others.
Yeah.
Altruism versus selfishness. But it's altruism. Not always altruism is the correct answer. Sometimes the game will put you in a situation where you have to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
And that's always the good turning point. That's the thing that people always remember from TV series or from movies, when you've gotten through this entire adventure with these people. Maybe they're even like new people that you've never met before, and you're having a really good time with them, but you have to betray them. You have to do something that changes your relationship with them, and they'll understand because they have cosmic bargains potentially that they have to do, or they've been put in a situation like that before. But it still gets at them. There's still this idea of you sort of chipping away at this friendship that you've got with people.
Yeah.
And it's not that they hate you. It's just removing the shine off of this thing, and taking a piece of sandpaper to it. So it's like, it's still the same shape, but it's rough now, and it's not the same as it was, and it never will be.
Yeah.
This relationship.
Like, we're not asking players to go PvP toe to toe. We're unraveling the elements by which they have had their gaming groups. We're not asking people to like kill your friend for a high score. We're being like, I want you to help your friend for like the next hour and a half. But at the key moment, you're going to end them and yourself, because if you don't, we will do something far worse to the other two. If you don't do as I say, everyone dies.
Yeah, it is just sorry, mate. It's just business.
It's just business.
It's just good business.
I'm sorry. I have to do this. I mean, can you imagine the player who has always been a healer, who has always been a friend, who has always been a teammate, and the dark cosmic horror goes, well, even if you sacrifice yourself, everyone else will still die. You have one choice to make, or I'll make it for you. Oh, and then someone getting killed and being like, no, you don't understand. You still have to get rid of this person, otherwise.
Or it's even better than that. I just thought about this, that we're talking about misinformation in the stuff that they're getting. What if it's that they get misinformation as part of the way the cosmic bargains work? So the healer has been told, you have to kill yourself.
Yeah.
When it gets to this point, and I tell you, you have to kill yourself. But that's a lie that they've been told. No one's saying that these cosmic entities are going to tell you the truth all the time.
And I know we're using some very hyperbole examples, but we could be much more subtle about what we're asking them to do. But sometimes feckin' lie to the player.
Yeah. Take all of the money, take all of the gold that you would get from this reward, and walk away with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, something really bad's going to happen. Or
no one
leave
is
the gold.
safe.
Yeah. Take none of the gold. Take none of the gold, and everybody will be fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the gold means nothing in the grand scheme of things. It's lying to you. It's saying that something's going to happen when it actually isn't.
Oh, that's just delicious.
It's so good. Zirta says that if players get resurrected or if they die, they might be able to get something from the beyond. That's possibly a way of mitigating the penalty of death. That yes, your character's died, or maybe this is a world with no death, but you resurrect weaker than you were before, or more broken than you used to be. But you've traded death for a piece of information that you know is true. So that could be a way of doing something where you would be able to get a piece of unadulterated information.
Yeah.
And that would mitigate the death that you had, at least a little.
Yeah. it's yeah. But I think we're all now starting to see how this experience would come together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the amount of elements that you can do, during the prep phase in the hub world, and the fact that there will be. So I'm not saying there would be only ever one map. I mean, assuming this is an MMO sized project, so we would have our small scale map, our medium scale, and our massive scale. We could vary the amount of teams on each map and how much they might need to communicate and work together.
I mean, each server could be a different city that you explore.
Yeah.
There could be multiple cities waiting to be discovered. It's an easy way of doing doing like DLC basically, or a new expansion pack. Is that you're now going into some sort of where you were going into a jungle or a cavern system. Now you're going over a city that is a puzzle. Like there's physically a puzzle city where you're pushing blocks around and you can see other people, but you're so far away from them visually that you can't interact with them. You can like look at them through binoculars, but they're on another mountaintop somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is all part of the same vast complex.
The jungle environment is going to keep it from players having like particularly long line of sights, aside from a few points that we designate, which I think will be very powerful. So there are points where you can try and get your bearings, but much like the bit with the
Well, they had it in The Hobbit.
Thank you.
Which is the best way to yeah.
That was what I was trying to think of. Because when he goes above the tree line and he's outside of the whatever the mad LSD shit that the Huffin is. Yeah.
The Fangorn Forest, yeah.
Once they're out there, he's like, oh, it's just over that way. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love having that, that pacing, those elements of. And
I mean, Quasimodo talks about how do we keep all the betrayal from creating a sort of diplomacy problem? Gameplay is worsened as it impacts real-life friendships. It's difficult in any kind of group-based game or competitive-based game to not to mitigate that damage potentially that you would do. It's just like playing a game, just like doing any task with anybody you know or don't know. There's no real way of doing that. By putting people together, there are diplomacy issues. People
like games like Werewolf and stuff like that have that pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've played multiple games of Werewolf. I've GM'd probably hundreds by now. But the idea is that people know it's a game, and if they can't come to the table effectively, knowing what's going on, knowing this is a game about, I guess it's much more simple than I'm making it out.
Yeah.
If you go into Dark Souls and it tells you are going to die, and you get mad at dying, even though the game told you were going to die a lot, that's not something that the game can deal with. It's already told you all that you need to know, and unfortunately, it just happened to you.
Yeah.
So
what we would do with
you
our
have
project
to kind of accept that
is that we would put it to the user that this is a horror exploration MMO. You will go. Your goal as a player is to get to the newly unearthed dig site to find the treasures and glory that awaits there,
and delay the arrival of the cosmic horror.
Yeah. If you can delay the world being consumed by a giant tentacle, then that's great too.
Then you could spend all of this money that you just earned.
Yeah. But beware, for the entity knows you are here, and it cackles delightfully at your feeble attempts. We don't tell the player, hey, you're going to be betraying your friends every 5 seconds. Because how we ration those betrayals out is something we'll only be able to understand once we're able to playtest. That's something that the pacing of that we won't know until we got humans in there. We can guess.
We're kind of focusing on the idea that these are going to be betrayals. We haven't really said how often. Hi, Malekith.
You know Mal, right?
Ish.
I think.
It's probably
we drank together in Horsham?
Oh yes, that's right. Hey, Malekith. Um, it's been a while. I know we're concentrating on all of these betrayals, and I know we're concentrating a lot on this, but these are kind of like the key mechanics and the key turning points that we want to put in.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that they're going to be 100% of the experience. It could happen that, only one person in that group of 20 people will have a cosmic bargain.
Yeah.
It could be that everybody has a cosmic bargain, and everybody has to work out who's telling the truth and who isn't, who's being lied to by the cosmic entity. That might be an encounter in and of itself, rather than it being dicking over your friends all the time.
Yeah.
Because eventually that just gets boring.
Mal, we dreaded and Horsham paint such a positive light of our interactions. Dear Lord.
I mean, it doesn't even tell you what we drank. So
yeah. And
it's a very positive light on it.
To just add on to your point, Christian, is that the reason why we're focusing on a lot of these high-end features is because those are where we'll be spending a lot of the time either in development, creating them, or designing them. The base interaction. I mean, stop me if I'm wrong, dude. We're probably going to be using firearms while we're out in the jungle, possibly other exploration tools and things like that. There'll be the overall gameplay loop is there will be NPCs and there will be things that we have to do battle with in a very mundane, very terrestrial manner, right?
I mean, that is the intention. In order to pick up the experience, in order for the experience to feel different. But we want the horror element. We want to make the gun scenes, or the scenes where we use combat.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Yes.
Very rare outside of the normal sort of getting to the place. Once you're inside, we want to keep this layer of dread just pressing down on you and pressing down on you and pressing down on you. So as soon as somebody fires a shot, even if it's just from a revolver, a sort of basic 1911 kind of thing.
Yeah.
It'll seem ridiculously loud and over the top for the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
It's not like an Indiana Jones type thing where you're running around and shooting everything. That's a more pulpy kind of adventure story. What we want is something more dreadful.
Yeah.
Where everybody's got you've got 6 bullets in that revolver, and that is it. That is all you have, because you've saved all of this space in your pack for food or miscellaneous scraps of paper with information on it,
yeah.
or a really big heavy idol, or just space for you to collect treasures and items that you might use. So combat in and of itself is going to be fairly pedestrian or standard before you get into this space, and then this space is going to be all about those character interactions.
Yeah.
The journey there is just to kind of whet your appetite for something which is going to be a lot more dreadful and pressuring when you get into the interior space.
And that was where this idea was born of. This idea was born of, how would you make a Darkest Dungeon MMO? And now we're hitting on it. Yes, we can fight. Yes, we can handle the terrestrial horrors. But it's the bigger fuckery. It's the struggling to survive, struggling to keep your mind together. It's doing all of this. And yes, you're surrounded by 5 other players, and you're giggling, and you're probably having a good time. But when you get separated, when things get bad, using the techniques that we discussed earlier, you've got your team of. Did we say teams of 4 or teams of 5? I can't remember.
It depends on what kind of mode of travel you're using.
Well, so the players will be able to choose their team size. So Christian and I have teamed up with 2 other people. Now I am Shooty McPunch Hard. My job is I am the fighter of the group, so I haven't got much in my pack apart from just enough food to survive. But I've got bullets galore. I've got knuckle dusters. Having grown
dynamite.
up. Yeah, having grown up hard in the streets of London, being a brawler, I've come over to Peru on a boat to escape some conflicts, which may or may not have been my fault. But I've fallen in with this gentry here, so I'll make sure that none of them get harmed, because I've actually got a heart of gold. Doop-de-doo, I'm Punchy McGunhard.
Whereas I am Horatio Cogworth, and I've gone through Eton, and I wanted to explore new places and liberate these treasures from the savages who don't understand them, probably. I've been paid to come over here. I have all of the money you could desire and a beautiful life, but that was boring. It was, I could have worked at a bank or at the British Museum, but I wanted a life of adventure, and I'm hanging around with this scruffy oik.
But between us, we can survive whatever terrible horrors the Machu Picchu jungles might throw at us. But then suddenly, they're separated. And Punchy, who's got all the fucking ammo and can survive a scrap, is by himself in a situation where he has to think his way out. And poor Horatio.
And Horatio is beset on all sides by monsters great and small, and all he has is a sword cane.
Yeah.
So,
trying to thumb bullets into a Derringer or something. I don't know, like...
Exactly, just taking the idol that he so wanted and uses it as an improvised weapon to bludgeon something to death. Or another player.
Yeah.
Another player who's gone completely insane, and I would have been able to shoot them before, but I had to cave in their skull with a golden idol of a monkey.
And it's like that moment as you pull back from what you thought was like a hooded face, a hooded monster with a face, a face of a million terrors, and you pull that idol back, and it's just some like Indiana Jones looking Mother Hubbard. You've just caved in. The jungle is dark.
It's just Mary Jobsworth, who came over here because she was middle class, and she wanted to start a new life somewhere else. She had a story, a backstory, a personality, and it all ended at the behind of a golden monkey.
Yeah, she took the cloak because she was cold. How could she have known it's dark? Oh, yeah.
Its dark coloring would be the thing that made her look just like the other cultists, or they're occultists and they were all wearing robes, and it got a bit confusing and everything went a bit crazy, and you weren't quite sure who was wearing a gold mask and who wasn't, and you turn around and you slash and you look up into their face and eyes look back at you rather than a pit of nothingness, and you've killed another player.
Oh god. And this is where our experience can shine. Like, taking a step back from the logistics and from the things that we're doing, like, we will be able to finally do all those stories. And Christian, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know, but for you lovely people in chat, so Mordheim was originally, I think it came out of White Dwarf. And the story was real simple. It was meant to be like a little warband game to play inside Warhammer Fantasy battles. But the premise was brilliant. A meteorite of pure warpstone strikes the city of Mordheim, killing most of the inhabitants, twisting the rest beyond imagining. But the thing with warpstone is it's incredibly valuable. The Skaven worship it. People sell it for massive amounts. But warpstone doesn't just warp people, it warps the very fabric of time and reality. It's the kind of shit the Chaos Gods love. And all the stories of Mordheim were of these warbands going in and it twisting their perceptions and their understanding. I'm still haunted by the story of 3 adventurers who nearly die of starvation trying to climb a tower. And they're in there.
That was a really good one.
Yeah, they're in there for like a week, and when they finally get to the top, they haven't progressed at all. They come out the same door they went in. And I'm like...
And they just come back. They just come back to the camps that are surrounding this devastated city, and they tell this story. This harrowing tale of nothing. They succeeded in getting nothing.
Yeah. But the power that we have is we understand gamers. So, we're saying about like having like big events. One thing that I thought was amazing was, and I won't praise Destiny 2 for very much aside from gun controls, but how it would make every player aware when there was a world event going on that map, and how all the players would gather towards it. No matter, the usual like animosity between gamers that you would usually find, gone. Everyone just like back to back. Let's smash this big bad for loads of rewards. We can use that.
Yeah,
to mess with.
I really love that. I really love that because that's basically the kind of game that we're constructing. You know, the idea that there's a world boss that appears, everybody gets a reward for killing it, so there's no point in really attacking other people other than your own kind of animosity towards the other group. You know.
Yeah.
So
and we'd
it's
probably need to find a way to stop players, unless they're being messed with by the cosmic bargain, to stop players from just out and out PvPing each other, because we know player behavior.
Yeah.
But that's another matter.
Well, I mean, PvP is dependent on you getting away with it. So part of the problem with a lot of PvP is that there's no outcome.
Yeah.
That is negative to that person. Whereas if you're all working together, and this person just kills somebody because they don't like their face or they said something about their mom, then screw it. They're going to get killed by the other players. All of the stuff they brought with them is going to be shared out amongst the group. Probably looting their corpse.
True.
They're going to die, and even with the death being mitigated by having some sort of benefit to it, like getting information or changing the way your character works, they still won't win that encounter. They won't get to the end of that encounter. If they do this thing right at the end of the encounter, they may leave with nothing. We could easily do that.
Yeah.
So if you leave a piece of like lit TNT on the ground and then log out, you can't log out. Part of the way that the game works is that you have to leave the area once you've done this thing. And you can't just teleport out once you've defeated the boss like you do in an MMO. You actually have to walk your way out of that space.
Yeah, and that,
which gives us a nice extra act, effectively, to do, because we've got this act of going from the hub world to the city and doing all the things in the city. But it's always nice to have an epilogue, which is, oh no, the tunnel's collapsing and everybody has to get out, or you've defeated this cosmic horror, but it's unleashed all of its minions and they're not being controlled anymore, so they're just running rampage.
Yep. Or we can leave our players alone in the dark and try and fumble their way out. Like, we can do so much.
Yeah.
Christian,
we can teleport them away from each other, so that they're in completely different parts of the environment.
Do you mind if I leave you with chat for just a second? Because I need to go for a monstrous piss, because I had like 3 coffees this morning.
No, that's fine. Okay. I can go through some of the chat stuff.
I would sincerely appreciate that, because I have had so much coffee and I'm probably going to have some more.
Yeah, you are going to have some more because you... Yes, Vincent, backwards, your messages are coming through. I liked your idea that you've got this kind of summoning thing, and it will solve your problem, quote unquote, as it says in the spellbook. But it does summon Gurkha the Confuser, which is, he'll definitely solve your problem, but he'll create a different problem for you later on down the line. What else? Quasimodo. Yeah, the difference between werewolf and diplomacy is where you're betraying the group, but we're kind of just throwing ideas around here. If we feel like something is too much of a dick move, and it harms individuals too much, then maybe we'll write that out. Maybe we'll take that out after playtesting, or we're just kind of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And also, if we make sure that death or failure has some kind of benefit, you won't feel too bad about it happening to you. It's not something that you're looking for, because, like I said earlier in the stream, we want players to feel like you've got your $200 gift card, but you could have won the car or the yacht or the holiday to Barbados. You get something out of it, but you don't get the big reward, the big payoff. But yes, setting up a game which breaks friendships or which negatively impacts people means that it's not a game, it's a troll simulator. So what we want is everybody to have fun and to have a set of rules, but we want to err on the side of messing with people and messing with relationships. Oh no, and it's always good to play devil's advocate. I play devil's advocate all the time. It's how I get my best design work. Designers are the first people who experience the mechanic that they're trying to sell to other people. So unless you think about it in a kind of 360-degree way, you're never really going to get the best idea out of it. And some people just forget that certain viewpoints exist. So it's always good to have somebody playing devil's advocate in that. Yeah, I mean that can be your OC Shadow Wolf, Sir Johnson Gaylord. That could be yours. That's totally fine. Yeah, Winston backwards. Yeah, as you mentioned before, the idea that you've got this this not quite full version of a summoning spell, or you haven't got all of the information. That might be something good to put in the document, that you always have a maximum of like 75% of the information. So some of it is going to be hello. So you've never got all of the information, because, as we said before, with cosmic horror, if you have more information, the more information you have, the less scary the thing is, because it's a known quantity now. Oh, that's the shape of the faceless entity. Oh, that's what it looks like. Whenever I talk about Cthulhu with people who've never heard of it before, I always try and, people have tried to describe it. It's like, oh, it's this big tentacled thing, and it's huge, and it has wings and claws and things like that. It's like, no. That's what the human mind says that thing is when you look at it. But the way that you should look at it is, I want you to get a really, really good picture of an octopus. A really detailed picture of an octopus in your mind. And now immediately combine it with a bicycle, and that is Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Whatever your first idea that went into your head, that is the thing. Because it's so weird, so out there, a mechanical device and a fleshy thing, and it shouldn't work, but it's alive, but it does things that, it doesn't quite fit in those dimensions. How did it develop like that? All of these questions, all of these different things mean that the less information you have, or the less you can trust all of the information, it means that you're wary. Maybe you'll find the last piece of the summoning rite or ritual inside the dungeon.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to enact it before then, you haven't got all the information. So a faceless stalker is summoned in addition to the thing that you wanted to do.
I also like the whole thing of in Lovecraft stories, Cthulhu was a monster too terrible to describe. I will now spend 3 pages describing Cthulhu.
Let me describe him for you.
Dude, so something...
Dagon, the faceless. Let me describe what his nose looks like.
I mean, this is the thing. We don't have to like Lovecraft or like how he did, but he put some cool ideas into effect. But, okay, something struck me. Something struck me while I was on the break. Renown. That is the thing that we haven't considered. Because...
Well, we touched on it last time with the idea of you being put in the paper.
Yeah, dude, the people that make it to the center, that do the thing, that's like set back the cosmic horror a little bit, they get the basically the equivalent of like play of the game. So if we're tracking user interaction, we could do them like a little, here's so-and-so with the old-timies. We send a camera team out there to find out. And it's like a little like black and white reel of the character doing things. So death is an interesting one, because death allows you to choose to continue your character with drawbacks, or roll a new character and assume that one is dead, and then that character appears in the obituaries. But if the character has done nothing when they die, the obituary is just a name in the paper.
Yeah, just another name on the wall of the fallen, effectively.
But the more renown that your character has before they die, then they become part of the world. We could even do it, which... I'm stealing this wholesale from a LARP system, but if a character has succeeded so many times and then dies, they become a horror that people must worry about. So
I also like the idea of like leaving an inheritance, so possibly your next character, like Rogue Legacy. So
Yeah.
you've got this idea that yes, you have failed, but you have failed and you managed to, people dragged your body back, or
Yeah.
your friends, didn't divide up all of your loot, or you left something behind in the town, which is basically a will
Yeah.
for your next character. So you can choose to take things with you, and you lose them if you die out in the wilds. But if you choose to store things in your safe or your safe deposit box,
Yeah.
then it's stuff that you can collect later
And those would be
as a new character.
I mean, we already agreed that we were going to keep the equipment mostly terrestrial, but people love weapon upgrades. There's maybe 5 or 6 different kinds of pistol, and maybe you just get you get an officer issue. You get a
Good old service revolver.
Yeah, you get a service revolver first. But if you want the fancy new 1911, which has been seen as most as the dawning of a new age, then that's the thing that you buy and air quotes unlock, so that when you roll your next character, you can choose of whichever guns, and maybe there's 5 different kinds of backpacks that just look different. Those kinds of things.
Yeah,
those are things that you spend cash on, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it might be that there's only certain things that you can store in a safe deposit box. Maybe, yes, you have this gun, and we don't put too many upgrades into the items that you have. But really, what you want to pass on is information, or just money.
Yeah.
Money is a good thing to pass on, so that you can so that you can afford things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to outbuy people, because you're in this port town, so you've got a limited supply of stuff.
So dude, the unlockables are, like we were saying the other day, if you unlock a slightly better you unlock a slightly better hunting rifle, you then have to wait for it to go back and forth, so maybe you've got to go out into the field. But Wraith just threw me a great idea as a curveball. So Wraith was saying, maybe you don't create your own character, but select from a pre-made ones. I kind of like that. I definitely think we agreed the names were going to be pre-made.
I think we wanted a certain selection of people who would be unique characters in a sense, with a unique name, but you give them the personality that you want.
So Wraith went on to say, the inheritance you leave won't necessarily go to your next character, but to another random player. And I was like, that's pretty cool. You didn't realise which so-and-so has left you. And then it struck me. You're in the field. You're bleeding out. The rest of your team is gone. There is nothing left for you. And the darkness whispered, where would you like all this to go? All these tiny little trinkets your insignificant self acquired. What do you want to do?
These baubles.
You could give them, you could be you can give everything that you own to a random player in the world. They'll know it was you. They'll see your name, and they'll know. Or you can keep a third of it. The next...
Oh, I love that.
The next of your line will get a small chunk.
Yeah. Whatever you've got in your safe deposit box, and the safe deposit box will be small, so there's only a certain amount that you can keep in there.
Yeah.
So that you'll be trading things amongst players. You'll be getting rid of old stuff and getting new stuff. You'll be trying to take the best stuff that you have into the field.
Yeah.
In order to have the best chance of doing something, but you won't exactly. You'll have a single step up, above starting players, but in a world where someone can just walk up behind you and just shoot you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Your stuff isn't going to mean an amazing amount.
Yeah. The idea is that we're asking our players. The experience that they're going to get is from being in the field. That's where we want them to be. And sure, because what I was thinking was that there'd still be a progression system external to your your single monetary wealth. So you'd still have the option to buy an M1911 after you've unlocked it. You know what I mean? So very MMO progression. Yeah,
the unlock tree is available to you, but these are just pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
And again, you could be Thumping McPunch hard.
Yeah.
And you go for all weapons, and that's great. But if he comes across a chasm that he can't get across, he has to rely on the other players to do something about it, or to climb all the way down and then all the way up, losing time.
Yeah.
So the idea that you could overcome obstacles is what really you're doing with extra pieces of equipment. I liked Alpha the Deluge's suggestion that a third of it will get passed on. You don't know which third.
You don't know which
just a
third.
third of it.
And Raid says
just some of it.
Yeah, passing it on has to come with a price. One of the items might be cursed or. The thing is,
cursed items! I love it.
Because we can track how many creatures or players or whatever you kill. So that that cavalry saber you inherited from your father that you ran through another player so that you might survive. When you die,
it's haunted by the ghost of that player.
Oh, it's so good!
and they had a name, and they had a backstory, a unique name, and it's that specific person's ghost, which is, once you pick up the sword, you can't get rid of it now. Every time you try and place it down on the bed to get rid of it, or to pick up a new sword, you can't. You feel drawn to take the sword every single time. And you're constantly haunted by the ghost of this person that was killed with this saber.
Yeah. And this is, this all...
I love that. That's so good.
It all feeds into the loot. The thing that will make players feel really, scared and fecked up and alone will be, late game, mid to late game when they're in the field. But this kind of stuff, feeds into that initial... picking up a cursed sword in a game, they're going to be like, one, I can't stop seeing this stupid player-made character every time I hold this sword, and I'm not allowed to hold any other melee weapon. I can't put this down.
Drunky McPunchhard. Who is this guy? Why was he killed with this stupid sword? Who's Horatio, and why did he stab him in the face? It's like I want to know the history of this thing now, and it might be that the ghost will tell you some of the history about it, like what it did and what it's good for. And cursed items. I like cursed items that aren't just this makes you go berserk, or this has to you have to sacrifice blood to this thing. Nothing that you have to do with it. It's just always affecting you in a kind of slow build kind of way.
After reading I love the idea of cursed items that require ridiculous things. So this staff will give you the power to levitate once a day. However, you must also spend 15 minutes submerged in water every day. Otherwise, you will walk to the nearest body of water until you die.
Yeah, you will continue walking until you find the nearest body of water, and then you will sit in it for 20 minutes.
Oh, see, Alpha the Deluge has got, why does this sword keep whispering in my ear, what about quests? Because we could keep track of most used emote. So Punchy's ghost keeps doing the up yours. This ghost just keeps swearing at me. What the hell? And then
they could even be useful things, like if the ghost that knew quite a lot of this South American language, they might be able to give you information.
Yeah.
So you could almost have cosmic bargains and terrestrial bargains with your cursed items. So you don't want to get rid of the cursed item because Horatio actually knows a lot more of the language than I do. And he keeps getting annoyed that I don't know and keeps translating things for me.
Yeah. And this gives us
I kind of want to keep him around.
Yeah. And this gives us our pacing arc because as we've seen with Darkest Dungeon and stuff like that, you need to give players bits of action, sometimes bits of brevity, to give that full horror experience. And if we're asking people to throw themselves into basically a sandbox of abominations for 2 hours, I love the paper. I love the idea that how Overwatch has play of the game, which you can download. That if you reach these levels, that there's something that you get to take away as a video asset that you can just download, or a little GIF or a picture.
Well, there can be a scrapbook, and this is literally a paper. So you take a newspaper clipping and you put it into a big folder, into an almanac thing, and it's kind of like, oh, look at this. This was the time that I did this thing, and this is the time I was part of the group that did this thing.
Dude, and
that's really good.
This is completely not related to anything, but I had a brilliant idea that as as developers of this project, we would never acknowledge this publicly, but wherever this is completely separate from time. So every year is the same New Year's party. So if you're doing like yearly events, it's always like 1931. It's every New Year's is 1931 or 2. Yeah.
It's the Shining thing, where you go there and it's always the same party, and it's always the same guests, and everything happens in exactly the same way, and something horrible always happens.
Yeah.
It's like I think Poe wrote The Mask of Red Death, which is a really good story if you've not seen it. It's about a group of extremely rich people. I don't think it's ever given a time frame, but there's a plague in the city, and it's killing thousands of people. But the rich are exempt from this because they don't have to go down into the city, and they have the best doctors and all the rest of this kind of stuff. So they throw this big party to get their mind off the fact that all these people are dying. You know, it's very depressing.
Yeah.
You know, it's making me sad that all these people are dying. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to have a big party.
Inconsiderate.
But it's a But it's a masquerade ball.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the Mask of Red Death is a version of death that has entered the party and kills all of them. And spoilers, because it's just a really good it's just a good story even with a spoiler.
It's Edgar Allan Poe, like
yeah. But the people, the plague eventually ends, and people come in, and the entire mansion where this party is taking place is completely locked up, boarded up. They can't get in.
Yeah.
They break in through the doors, and everybody is dead of this plague. And it's that kind of idea that something horrific happened, and it just keeps replaying itself over and over again, which is how we can do seasonal events and have them be the same, and have people mention that this is exactly the same as what happened last year. It's like, yes, exactly, down to the last detail.
Yep.
It is exactly what happened last year, because it was 1930 moving into 1931.
Yeah.
Every year.
Every year. Happy New Year, 1931. Oh, it's so good.
Zirta had a really good one, which was a really good idea, which is sort of the betrayal incentive. Maybe it could give you a chance to increase a chance to get their inheritance, whatever it is. Or maybe the cosmic entity will take something from them and give it to you as an inheritance.
Yeah. So
I like the idea that it's like it's not like a percentage chance. It's a thing that you can get out of this. It's a definite transaction as part of the reason why you would kill this player. I mean, we'd want something more narrative, but that could be a physical benefit to doing that.
Well, so we take a leaf out of Dark Souls' book. We don't stop players from killing each other, but there are consequences. Mm-hmm. So if you kill something under direction of the cosmic horror, then that's not too much. But if you start running around murdering people without rhyme or reason, well, the cosmic horror takes exception to that. This is its backyard. This is its little playground. You didn't get permission to do that. It tells
you. Yeah, it tells you when you're going to kill people. It tells you when people are going to die. It has control over the situation. If you try and take control, it's going to take control back.
So, dear high-level player, there is a person on this map who has slaughtered others for no other reason than their own amusement. They take great pleasure in killing and stealing. I want you to kill them and take their place. You get everything that they have. And so someone who's just been griefing and like hoarding shit, we could just be like, and you could just keep throwing.
It's just everybody's wanted to have that occasion where somebody who has griefed them, or someone who delights in trolling other people. I mean, we're delighting in trolling the players, but the reason why we're doing this is to get a good experience out of it.
Yes.
But everybody's had that experience with a troll player. Yeah. They've just gone, I wish there was a way that I could get them back for doing that, or for saying that, or for, some in-world way of evening the playing field again.
Yeah, and in Dark Souls, they accepted that players are going to invade and murder people again and again and again. So not only do they have the blues that will show up and help you, but then there's the Dark Moon Blades, who hunt only the most deadly PvP players, the ones that really mess with people, like the tracker hunters. And we have our little sandbox. We have our sandbox of horror.
There's no reason to think that we wouldn't have, Geralts wandering around trying to take out horrible people rather than anything else. It could be an actual part of the game. You know, the idea that you go to a hub world and your reputation is everything.
Yeah.
So your reputation could be something like a good reputation for stopping the bad thing from happening. But you could earn yourself a bad reputation, which wouldn't stop you from doing stuff, but it would just get you on someone's shit list somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the more stuff that you do that's bad, the more you'll get recognized for it. But it's 1920s and 1930s. There's a kind of code of conduct that goes on here.
There's
an honor amongst thieves. So.
And I mean, we saw with what was it? The Dark Zone from the game that should have been Daisy in New York, but ended up being terrible.
Division.
Thank you. And I did play that through. And actually, the Dark Zone during leveling at launch was phenomenal. Like, that's an experience that will stay with me. But one thing that was interesting is that players don't just outright attack each other for fear of consequences. So if we can make the consequences known, I think there's an element there that we can use. The way I'm starting to see this now, sorry for double pointing here, but I'm starting to see this like very much like LARP-esque, or more like pen and paper. So all of our players will accumulate different elements, be it like things they're trying to achieve, or crimes they have committed, or good deeds they've done. And so that when everyone enters into this area, when everyone is, they've decided their mode of transport and they're waiting to start the match, and everyone is put in, those are all like the cards on the table. The deck is always different. And that's what's going to keep it from being fresh. It's not just going to be betrayals and horrors every time. Sorry, you were going to say, dude. I do apologise.
No, it's fine. I've actually just been reading through the chat, and Alpha the Deluge had a really good idea, which was
Go on.
So, we can let players know when the person that killed them, the person that griefed them, is online and is in a game. And because everybody's joining from separate groups and things like that, we just put them into the same group.
Yeah.
Give them, the cosmic entity gives them the option of avenging things, because it likes to play games, and that's the best thing about it. It's not about killing people. No one's quite sure what it's trying to do. So by letting it do something good for you, that'll make it feel all the more weird when it asks you to do something and it doesn't ask for anything in return.
Yeah.
That's just as bad as when it asks you for a favor in the future. It's like, why has it done this good thing for me?
Yeah.
What is going to happen to me, or has it just set this thing up in order to make me feel better? Is that what it's doing? Why? And it adds into this idea that you don't quite know what this thing is doing and why it works the way that it works. It's unknowable. It's possible, Last Word Hunter, to force passive players into a more aggressive playstyle, but what we're trying to do is break people out of patterns, not necessarily force them into a specific pattern. If you see the distinction, if you force them to be one thing, then it feels like they're being railroaded. If you say you can't be this thing that you were before, pick one of these other four things, then that gives them a lot more control over how they want their game to progress.
So
maybe they feel like it's a more aggressive playstyle is going to help them in a certain situation.
So what we were talking about before with betray one of your friends or I'll kill three, that was one of the things where, like Last Word Hunter, we are fully acknowledging that there are players who play these kinds of games cooperative with their friends and will only ever support their friends. So we know we can't bribe that player. We can't offer them any amount of in-game currency or cosmetic item or achievement that will cause them to betray their friends. And that's more common than most situations seem to acknowledge, which I find very bizarre. But we know they care about their friends. So we put it to them. If you have 3 friends with you, there's 4 of you together. I want you to betray one of them, or I will take all 3 of them away from you.
I mean, even if it's just friends of convenience, the mechanically minded players may not see randos or even other players in general, even their friends, as anything more than a resource for them to use. But having to sacrifice that resource is just as much a decision for those people of those mindsets as people who are like, I'm really sorry I have to kill your character. I'm really sorry I have to kill this person that you are. And maybe they won't, or maybe those people who are more mechanically minded will have no compunction about killing anybody.
Yeah.
But they'll have a different experience because they will just go, I've weighed out the pros and cons and I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Whereas friends might weigh up the pros and cons and go, it would be better if I killed you, but I don't want to.
I don't want
let's
to
fight
do
against
this. Yeah.
Let's fight against the consequences of this. Yeah. Maybe we think that we can deal with whatever the consequences are.
Yeah, and then we get a kind of a fun little... We get a mini arc within our 2-hour session, like a little Buffy arc where they try and find out how to do something. I mean, in the end, the cosmic horror cannot be understood. It cannot be defeated, only delayed. And it'll get its pound of flesh.
One way or another.
One way or another. Wraith had a great little tasty one. So Wraith was like, cursed items could also be used in that way. Perhaps you can pay a merchant to curse an item and have it delivered anonymously. Receiving a mysterious package fits with the era in the game, and maybe that's the same way that the game gives you certain rewards. You never know if it's on the player until you open it. Dude, any multiplayer game that gives you rewards for returning to play, the first thing you do, oh cool, I've got some free in-game currency. To curse the sword. Fuck! I can't put the sword down.
I mean, that's the kind of cool thing that you get with just like you'll get telegrams like all the time from the game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like telegram. It's like, okay, package for you. It's like, okay, cool. That must have been the thing that I ordered. It's the right shape and size as the thing that I ordered. Yeah. So it's got to be that. And there's no difference. There's no way of telling if it's this thing or this thing. And I have to open up the package because I bought it.
Yeah.
Or it'll direct you to a location which has got like a safe deposit box, and it's like, okay, that's the same number of safe deposit box as I got the inheritance for. Great, my inheritance has come in, and someone has swapped the numbers on the boxes.
Yeah.
Which contains exactly the same amount of stuff. It's just that one of the items is cursed.
It's a skull. It floats and follows your character, and at one point, randomly, every half an hour, it just yells at the top of its lungs. Ah! Can you imagine?
I'm over here!
Trying to sneak through the jungle and avoid other players or creatures or monsters. You're doing like a proper belly crawl, and then the skull's like, ah! And the skull's like a Muppet skull as well. Like it's almost like it's mocking.
It's a comedy skull. It plays one of a refrain from Vivaldi's Four Seasons, like something completely alien to this environment. It's like shut up. It's like no. Every half an hour I have to play a minute's worth of Vivaldi, and it's just like no, stop it.
That would be so funny. And the thing is, maybe the skull's not directly above you. Maybe it flies around a little bit. So no one knows exactly where you are, but no, they know you're around. Oh, there's so many good things.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point...
It's like, great little touches like that. Yeah.
So we're really in there. Oh, hang on. What of the game... So, everybody, what are the gameplay experience stuff that we talked about that I haven't added? So we had...
So we've got. We started off with the hub world. We moved on to the travel aspect. We haven't gotten into like the nitty gritty of what's going to be happening in the temple itself, which is good because if we just jumped in, then we wouldn't have gotten all of these really great suggestions.
Oh hell yeah!
But so we were sort of. It has to be. Oh, of course, Mary.
And Wraith with the skull always looks you dead in the camera before it starts yelling. With that, it's not communicating anything other than this is your fault.
Don't
you do it! Don't you freaking do it!
It's flying around. You always see the back of the head of the skull. It's always kind of in front of you, and it just slowly turns towards the camera. It's like, don't you do it!
Don't you dare!
I'm watching you. You've got like 10 seconds to find a place to hide before it starts playing Vivaldi or screaming. It's like, no, and you try and put your bag over the top of it. It still doesn't work. It flies out of the range of your hands.
Oh.
In a very kind of Bioshock Infinite kind of way. It's like, no, and you can see your hands like reach out and try and grab it.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's awesome.
But
yeah, so we've gotten this kind of the idea of how you travel to the place and the kind of experiences you might run into while you're doing this.
Oh, I mean, firearms and melee
combat. There's been some really cool, firearms and melee combat. You know, melee combat in first person is difficult to do, but none of these people are going to be expert fighters.
Yeah.
You know, if you'll be as good at using a pistol as you are any other first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Using a weapon that is, you know, we should try and make the weapons as accurate as possible, so they do have kick. They are kind of useless at like long range unless they're specifically a long-range weapon.
But we can
they're very basic weapons in a sense. They're not like souped up and they don't have like extra stats put onto them. They're just they're tools effectively.
Yeah, and we can treat them as thus in the ways that they're unlocked and the ways that they're presented to the player. So, like, you know, what weapons they can purchase for their new character is something they unlock over time, and so stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, did you have a bad time playing Battlefield 1942? Of course not.
It was so terrible, so terrible.
Were there unlockable weapons? Were there stat increases? Were there mods? No, of course not. But you had a good time playing it because everything felt balanced and varied and accurate for the time frame as much as they could do.
It also means that we can add new firearms as a cosmetic choice rather than necessarily having to worry too much about the combat balancing, because, like, ultimately, firearms in our game, firearms are a tool to solve a problem. They are a shovel, they are a magic book, they are a flaming torch. It's just
they might even be like less useful than some of those other items that you just mentioned.
Yeah, but we know that gamers enjoy combat and that gamers have an affinity for certain kinds of firearms, and we can riff on that.
That's as we said earlier on. There's no reason to believe that we wouldn't have a combat encounter, just like in a pen and paper role-playing session, or in a good game of werewolf. You know, everybody dies. Somebody has to die at the end of every single round of werewolf. So you hang someone in the town square.
True.
You know, it always has combat. It always has conflict resolved in a good way or a bad way. So we shouldn't shy away from that. It's just not going to be the focus.
Yeah.
It's going to be the palate cleanser between acts. It'll be that kind of really nice cathartic moment where you've been saving up all of your bullets.
Yeah.
You've had all of this dread placed on you all the time. You go into the burial mound, and you can see all of these corpses, all sort of mummified, Aztec in Aztec dress with like matuils, those flint swords, and it's like, this is going to be a combat encounter. This is going to be where I put shotgun to face and I feel better about myself because I don't have to kill anybody else. I don't have to do any of this stuff. I can just unload as much ammunition as possible, and the game is giving me this ability to do it.
Yeah.
It's giving me the freedom to do this thing.
And that
could be really refreshing.
Yeah. And it might sound as if we're jamming ideas in counter to the overall theme, but it's like, I'm not telling anyone here anything they don't know, but horror is all about pacing, and you need the tense and release. And you know, we're saying that our users are going to spend 2 hours in the sandbox. Like, if they do a complete loop, they're going to spend 2 hours in the field. That's 2 hours. That's intense. And so there's there needs to be elements of release, because otherwise it'll get too intense for players and they just stop.
I mean, because we've got this long form play, it just came into my mind that if we've got sessions which should last about an hour and a half or 2 hours, that should be like watching a horror movie.
Yeah, but a good
should
one.
Have this, should have very a good one. So similar sort of tension and sort of build up and release and points of conflict and little combat encounters where people die in those situations. It should feel like that. It should feel like you could spend time watching a good horror movie, or you could have an interactive experience which lasts the same amount of time, but you get so much more from it.
If it's okay with everybody, I'd like to propose an additional core element, which is every session is a story. Not that every session that you'll win, but every session you'll come away with a tale. Because I guess that's kind of where we're starting to move towards.
I mean, it's definitely supporting that idea. No, it's definitely supporting that idea. I don't think people really think of... they kind of put horror into two different categories, it seems, or at least that's been popular.
Yeah.
The sort of Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th, short-form horror game, 15, 20-minute sessions, or the long-form Soma's Alien Isolations, where you can spend as much time as you want doing all of this stuff. And that can be like a 20-hour experience, all told. But you really can only deal with about an hour's worth of that experience, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, and those ones, they tend to pace it within the narrative, but then you're not contending with other other players IRL. Dude, at some point, if it's okay, I really want to do the Alien 1 standalone little DLC thing. That's not the DLC thing in Alien Isolation. Because I still
Crew Expendable.
Yeah, I haven't done Crew Expendable yet. So I'd love to.
Crew Expendable is really, is a good one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm adding
that.
I'm adding that to our core pillars.
Yes.
Every session is
and this gives us a good way of doing pacing, because we can do what action games do and what horror games do really well, which is they look at horror movies and action movies. The pacing comes from those things. Those stories are very similar. The interaction that you have with them is just deeper into the game because it's an interactive medium, but the way that the pacing is done, the way that things are presented to players is very, very similar across both mediums.
Yeah. Oh, and everybody, I made a little section for example characters. So if you want to put your made-up character names for this world in there, I put Punchy McGunhard. What was your character called?
Mine?
Yeah,
Horatio Cogsworthy.
Horatio Cogsworthy. I don't know how to spell Horatio. Is it H? It's H-A-R...
H-O-R. Horatio. H-O-R-A-T-I-O.
Yay!
Without the U. Without the U.
Fine! Okay, so
there we go.
Feel free to add your made-up characters there, and if you want to add a little bit after him, you are more than welcome. So, we've got ourselves a really strong... Jeez, we've got enough to start, basically... We're not so much doing the minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour, because we've got, a longer play session. But, dude, we've enough to start designing the teeny-tiny stuff. We could get into the fucking weeds if we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, if people wanted to have a session about what sort of equipment you could take with you, that's an entire section, and organizing what your inventory could be like, or working out how transferring items works, all of these kind of what people think are mundane but are really, really important. Whenever somebody comes up to me and says, I've got an idea for a game, I like listening to them, but I'll know if they've really thought about it properly by just asking, so what's your inventory system like?
Yeah.
Because people come up to me and go, I've got this great idea for a first-person shooter, and it's like this movie and this thing and this thing and this thing. It's like, those are all great ideas. what's your inventory system like? And they'll go, what do you mean? I was like, well, do you have only 2 weapons, like in Halo, if this is going to be a first-person shooter?
Yep.
Do you have multiple weapons, like in Doom? What's your reload situation like? Can you collect things? If you collect things, do you have to organize them in a backpack, like in Diablo? Or are they just contained by weight, and you can only have a certain number of them of a certain weight?
Yeah.
Is it a mixture of both? Is it just only quest items, like in a point-and-click adventure? And it's these kind of things that people don't really think about. Hey, DJ Alternative.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Because I'm
okay.
trying to find the name of a thing, and it's pretty tricky.
That's fine. That's why I keep talking.
Thank you, dude.
That's why I keep talking.
Wait, what the hell? Oh yeah. Sorry. Please continue.
So yeah, I can't remember where.
But it
where
was
I
the point that if you just ask someone to go down to the basics.
Yeah, they'll often fall at a hurdle they didn't think was important, but can be very easily solved. It's not about trying to catch them out and say, aha, you haven't thought about this idea. Yeah. It's more, if you thought about something this mundane and how it works with your game, it means that you can be much more confident about your game, because people can ask questions about it and can play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And it just works. You're totally confident in selling your idea to people because you've at least thought about a section of the game. So we could go into the weeds, like you say. We could go into something super detailed, like working out stats for weapons. I mean, we could do that because we know we want weapons. We could detail a list of inventory stuff, or we could go more into the storyline. We could talk about the town and the town's backstory, or the city, or the cosmic entity. So we could go back into something a bit more narrative and try and sort of string that together, or we could continue on the sort of chronological aspect of the gameplay. We've already gotten from the hub town to the city. What's going to happen in the city, or how do you organize your groups, or what research can you do in the hub town before you go into this section. So the world is open to us effectively for where we move next.
Yeah, but we've got a full. The thing is, we have the full picture of a game. We know how our sessions start. We know how our sessions end. We know what our players are going to do in this world. We know how they're going to progress. Like, this is a GDD. I mean, I think it would need to go more onto paper than it is currently, because it's a lot of. But in my head, I can see how this full session works.
Yeah, I mean, you can pull these two things. This document can be pulled apart in two ways, effectively, and create the two important documents that you need to really kind of make a game and to sell a game in a sort of professional aspect. There's the game design document, which should have a clear idea of all of the different parts of the game that you're going to be talking about. That can be something it's the Bible effectively that you're working from.
The GDD.
So that's the GDD, and then you've got the HLGD, the high level game design document. 2 pages, or no more than about 4 or 6 pages worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Detailing the real core mechanics and the core storyline and the thing that you're trying to do, really condensed down to something that you could give to somebody and they could read in 15 minutes and get exactly what they needed to know about this game.
It's usually a nice
inspire question.
Yeah, usually a lovely laid out little deck that just shows someone that someone would just need to flick through and would immediately be like, yes, I understand what your game is. And we can create either of those two from the 2 sessions we've done. Okay, so peeps in chat, so what are your questions? What are you confused about? What are your thoughts and feels so far? Come on, because right now we have a sandbox, massively multiplayer horror game where multiple teams are all sent in together, and they will betray each other, they will betray themselves, they will work together, and as they attempt to tackle the breeding ground of the Great Darkness, the place where it holds, they will probably need to work together and possibly be annihilated.
Well, just to really quickly touch on something.
Go for it.
Emerald Billy, the names and things like that are more kind of so that we can generate characters for people to play.
Yeah.
They put their own characteristics onto that. We could say that you get a sort of random set of characteristics, but you could just easily have that as text, and you just delete that from the box, and you play your character however you want them to be.
Yeah. It was just that was just a fun little thing that I wanted to put in, so people could add their character names to like a list. So.
Yeah, I mean we want to feel people like that, but if you could. If you could do a bit of a summary and a catch up for DJ and Roguelink, that'd be cool.
Boy, can
I'm
I!
going to disappear and try and find some food, just briefly.
Okay, I'll
leave
your channel open, sir.
Yes, I'll be back.
So, today we came up with what our gameplay experience is going to be, and we have come up with a game I now really want to play. So, starting off in a small fictional hub world. You and varying team sizes of friends will travel into the darkest heart of Central America in search of treasure, in search of renown, in search of staving off the great darkness that threatens the very fabric of existence. Your reasons are varied. Gameplay experience, you can team up with as many friends as you like, and you will all be put into one big-ass map. All the players will be dotted around at varying locations depending on what mode of transportation they selected. Some individuals along the way will be offered a bargain or a threat by the cosmic horror. Betray your friends at this point, or I'll contact you later. Or in some instances, the great cosmic horror will make your shifty plans known to everyone else, so they might betray you. The map is one large-scale map with people starting in different areas. Using varying instances, we may loop players in little infinite bubbles, or ghost players atop one another in certain situations, so while they can see each other's ghostly form, they can no more communicate or interact. Some players will betray others, some will kill others. Ultimately, the goal is to visit the temple in the very heart of the map. The farthest, the most central corner that you will get to. From here, you will probably need to team up with other groups of players, because the stuff that you will encounter will be both of combat encounter difficult and of mind encounter difficult. There'll be physical puzzles. There'll be elements that just require a large number of bodies. But bearing in mind at this point that anyone around you could have a cosmic bargain to betray or have a reason to overthrow you. All of this being played through the first-person perspective in a 1930s, 1920s kind of style. We decided 1930... It's always 1931. It's always 1931. Once you have acquired your goodies, you will attempt to get out. The game will again mess with you. Especially during the temple, it will separate you and put you with groups of people you've never met. So it might take you from your team and drop you with people in another part of the temple, or it might separate you on the way out, because you must leave to successfully leave with your goodies intact. What awaits you for succeeding in this? Well, objects that are worth money can be used to buy things you've unlocked. The idea being is that characters can die. You have the option to bring them back or to roll anew, but your progression continues. So the different kinds of backpacks and firearms that you can purchase. However, if you make it to the temple, succeed, you come away with a magical MacGuffin or manage to stay off the darkness, the renown that you get is impressive. Not only do you get a featurette in the paper, but you also get like a little play of the game style video that you can download just for yourself to show people. There's a scrapbook of your adventures. The additional core element that we added was that every gameplay session is its own story, with its own encounters, with its own ebbs and flows. And you start thinking about each one of those, every time you queue into a game, with whichever transport method, whatever happens along the way, that's something whatever happens in that will be a story that you can take with you. And holy heck. Also, DJ Alternative saying, also, have you read the intro that Alpha and I wrote? Just passed it to the bottom. If you haven't, no, I didn't see that. So let me just approve those real quick. There we go. Those are approved. Oh! Okay, everybody, gather round. Let me just get a slug of coffee. My dear friend, if you are reading this, I've either gone missing or turned up dead in my latest expedition. Honestly, if the former happened, the latter is likely as well. In an ideal world, only you and whomever you decide to tell would hear this, but stories like these never remain hidden from the world. As an archaeological historian, I know better than most, but I have complete faith in you, and I don't want my research to go unfinished. My search for the history and legends and rumors of old, dead, or secret civilizations, yes, there is a difference, and I don't care what those quacks say, has led me to the very mountains of Peru. I recently uncovered ruins of a mountain town called Machu Picchu. It's a few hours from the port town of Twinset, and my research indicates that it is most likely a place to further my research on forgotten deities of the South American civilizations. The ones that no normal person knows the name, but which are undeniably a part of daily life. Such fascinating, albeit horrific, practices and legends surround these gods, and I believe this region to be the source of these stories. A few writings found nearby have even suggested that the people that the time interacted with these deities on a daily basis. Can you imagine? Hopefully, I shall learn far, far more as I ascend into the mountains and begin my studies proper. But in the event that something should happen to me, I implore you to finish my work in my stead. If not for knowledge, then perhaps for the fame and fortune one might receive when this land's secret truths are finally revealed. Enclosed is a copy of all my relevant research and notes. I'm sure they will be of help to you. Oh, and you also might want to bring a Spanish-English dictionary. Farewell, my good friend, and good luck. Peter Hopkins. Oh, that's good! But the thing is, like, you could all you could smell the flavour of this world. The jungle is humid, almost like tar. The coffee is sickly strong and sweet. Your room is a small place with a fan that barely works, but yet for some reason you can't imagine living anywhere else now. And you can get a sense of it. And now I really want to play it. So the reason I was faffing around with Steam is I was trying to remember the game that came out recently, which was called Hunt Showdown. The thing is, I really want to try it, but it's too expensive to get on a whim to just see what its elements are, because I feel they came at the idea of doing this Dark Souls FPS PvE, but it's PvP, but it's kind of not, but it sort of is. And I'd like to see how they handle their progression of weapons, as a research thing. But, you can all get to understand this world now. Our characters would... I think that we would be... So character creation would be pseudo-randomized. So we wouldn't all have, pink mohawks and ginger beards. Oh, wait. But there would be a certain amount of... So, with Sea of Thieves, you get some preset pirates that you can select from and then customize them. I think we'd do something similar to that manner. That kind of that dawn of the century... Oh, dude.
Hello, I have returned.
DG Alternative wrote a letter from basically the last will and testament of a character to another character, and oh, dude, it's so good. It's so good.
Where did they send it?
Oh, it's in the document. They plumped it.
Oh, it's in the document. Oh wow, okay, cool. I'll have a read of that.
Yeah.
I just need to organize my space so that I can have food and not be perched over the top of something,
dude.
and have the chat channel open and everything else.
It's no worry. I mean, I feel like we might be coming to an end, at least on the group design, because I'd want everybody to kind of stew on what this game is and how it goes. I don't like. Okay, so from your pro perspective, like from this point, we're literally just designing a game now. It's no longer like high level, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point where this has moved on from this is a cool idea to, hey guys, how do guns work? Or how often should players get a reward for logging in?
Yeah. What's the actual geological situation like in Machu Picchu? How humid is it?
Yeah, let's take a look at colors, because we want to make sure that they're muted enough to keep the dread, but we want it to feel exotic. What kind of buildings are in this port town? How big is this port town? Because if it's going to support like 20 players, then it needs to be like not too big. But like, what do we do with the AI when players aren't like interacting with them? Do they have lives and jobs and things, or do they just stand around waiting for players to interact with them? You know, we're this kind of like weird stage of like deciding very specific things about the way that the game works.
Yeah, I honestly thought we were gonna have a harder time with the gameplay loop, because like MMOs always struggle with that, but we kind of hit it.
I mean, we will have if we went any deeper into this, that's where people start. You know, when it gets down to numbers, like, what's the percentage chance that someone is going to get a cosmic bargain?
Yeah.
And we have to play through the loop like 70 or 80 times and go like, oh, it feels like there's just too many cosmic bargains because they're skewing the system. Yeah, so we need to tweak it over this way or this way. It becomes that's where the initial idea is easy to have. Then stage 2, which is the one that we push through, is difficult. On stage 3, once you've nailed down the idea,
game.
well, no, stage 3 is where you're detailing all of this stuff. Having gotten through stage 2 is an easy part, and then you get to stage 4, which is the nitty gritty again, and then stage 5, which is the actual pushing through to the end and making sure that you've got everything ready to go and making a game. That's where it becomes making a game rather than designing a game.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I mean, and now we're adding great ideas atop great ideas. I mean, so Emerald Billy's like, what about a journal that is a diary section that automatically updates when something happens? Yeah. So like you would still like to get renown in the world, you need to do something of note inside the sandbox. But your character, like keeping a track of, you know, every character that you've played and the things that they did and something for your own personal sake, like I see no harm in that. That'd be client side, so it's not a worry.
Yeah, I mean, we could even have it that the journal becomes the place that you store the information that you're getting. Like before you go out there, you might do research. You might like order in some occult books, and then you have to read through them, and your journal will make note of all of these different rituals and rites. And you know, that's where you'll find all of these details that, oh, you have to go round the tree 3 times rather than 2 times, and then pin the blue painted doll to the tree. You know, that could be in your journal, and then when you look back over your journal, you look back over that 2-hour play session, and you go, oh, that's what happened because I did all this research up until that point, and this is how I used it.
Yeah.
And this person, unfortunately, you know, died by falling down a hole full of scorpions. This person had to be sacrificed, and this person turned on us. Oh my god, you know, how could this happen?
Because the last 2 people got killed by scorpions and holes.
Yeah, exactly. The scorpions don't have a personality.
They have one personality. Asshole.
Yeah. They chose the asshole trait, and they just majorly went down that tree.
Yeah. But what is this? Tear Zoo? Anyway, but yeah, like, I have I have such a strong idea in my head. Like, this is the point where I'd even start chatting with like a concept artist and just be like, do us some like mock sketches, like whilst we're coming together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you start talking to writers, you start talking to artists, you start trying to flesh out the look and the tone of the world a bit more. Something that you could present to somebody as like just a paragraph of text, a story within this world.
Yeah.
That would be able to do it. I was at EGX Rezzed over the weekend.
Whoop, whoop.
And for non-Europeans or for people who don't know what that is, it's a kind of indie game show in the UK.
Mint, I want to say Ryoku? Ryoki. However I say your username, it's lovely to have you with us. A little follow sneaking in there.
But yeah, there was a lot of indie games there, and one of them was Sunless Skies.
Oh.
And they had some of the writers from that, including the writer and one of the writers and editors, and she did the presentation about Sunless Skies, about how they made it, by examining one of the areas you go to, one of these ports that you'll go to.
Yeah.
And she had just little snippets of information, which really sold. If you just read that,
yeah,
you'd kind of get exactly what you needed to know about that area or that specific scene in 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah.
If we can have somebody do that.
Was that Olivia? Ginger Lass.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I forget her name because I'm awful with names. I'm great with faces, but awful with names.
Dude, I know them feels. As I think everyone will agree with my. But sorry, just because the people of the chat have actually met Olivia, she came on the show for Submariner.
Okay. In which case then, they have quite a few writers on their
just
staff,
1 or 2.
but they have, I think they worked with 6 on Sunless Skies.
Sorry, I apologise for interrupting.
Probably.
So you were saying that they took one element and worked outwards?
Yeah, well, they worked it outwards for the presentation. So it's that kind of thing that we would be well placed to do now that we have an idea of what it's going to be like. You could give that setting and that theme that we came up with to a concept artist or to a writer, and just say, give me a story that might be in this world, or give me a paragraph that might express what one of the buildings in the town is like. Describe that for me. As if it was a sort of microcosm for the game.
Yeah,
and then you'd be able to sell that, the idea.
I mean, I can imagine what the... Mint's just saying, hello, decided to tag along with your streams as one of my friends recommended that I should watch you on Twitch. Also, the last part of my username is pronounced Rikio. Rikio. It's lovely to have you with us. We're doing a live design of a MMO horror game right now, so pull up a chunk of internet and come join us. In my mind, like from the port town, it's either the bar or something like that, and it's all the myriad. It's some of the characters coming fresh off the boat. It's some of the grizzled ones who've been in and out the jungle a few times, and there's like missing people on the bulletin board, and
strange happenings, or like, have you seen this idol, or
but it's got there's the shadows are a little bit long. Even though the sun is bright, everything seems darker than it should be.
Why is everything a certain shade of blue?
Yeah.
Like, not a natural shade of blue. It's just like, even as you hold up your hand to look at it, it's just, everything seems like it's moving slower than it did before. It's barely perceptible, but everything just feels like it's got a slight blur of motion to it. Like, it's not quite where it should be.
But yeah,
But it's fine.
Yeah, it's probably just the humidity. That'll pass.
Yeah, it's just heat haze. It's fine.
All of the locals seem they seem pretty chill, pretty sleepy, but when they look at you, their eyes are piercing. They're not blinking. They're not missing a single movement. And then
there's
so that's one of our.
There's
Go for it, dude.
There's like even as you go through. We were talking about the travel between this port town, which Emerald Billy has done a good version for 100 and 150 miles. That's actually pretty good. If we said that the travel distance was about half that, that makes it a real trek in from the coast.
Yeah.
But we said about all these encounters that you can have along the way between the port town and the city. You could get lucky. Nothing could happen, but you could get a bit of text. You could get a strange occurrence that happens to you that doesn't mean anything. It just enriches the experience.
Yeah, we can vary our encounters.
It doesn't have to be a gameplay thing.
Yeah, because like you were saying, we can give our players a little bit of text, or maybe a couple of still images as progress to them. Maybe the car has to stop, and there's a small but ultimately easy to handle combat encounter, something to make maybe our larger team feel more powerful than they are, because we know we're going to mess with them. We've got a full smorgasbord, and from a technical standpoint, during that point, we only really have to worry about our little group of players in our little bubble, because we haven't dropped them into the sandbox yet. So that's the point where we put them in our cocktail shaker and just give them a little shake before pouring them out.
I mean, we've got them where we want them, basically.
Yeah.
This is the one of the only points that we can control their experience as players. So we really need to leverage that as much as possible by having really interesting encounters, or by just messing with them, by delaying them through a non-combat encounter, or just having something where you drive along the road and you catch something out of the corner of your eye and you see that there's a vehicle that's been run off the road, and it's got claw marks in it, but larger than any animal.
Yeah.
But what animal can claw through solid steel? And you drive on, and you feel a bit more wary about what's going on, or you see a strange plant that you've never seen before, and you go near it, and it gets up and it runs away, and you never see it again. And it's just like, what actually happened there?
Yeah. We can.
Is that real?
Yeah. So I guess the second piece of concept ask I'd ask for is something from that moving section. I think the third one would be what would probably turn into our key art. Maybe. I don't know. But so it's like a landscape shot from our sandbox, and it's a bunch of different things happening to a bunch of different groups. More of the action-y elements. Not the gunfire necessarily, but going across. There's one little team here going across a rope bridge, and then there's one team here, and there's Punchy shooting his shotgun into the air and blasting as a thing that appears
giving them time to solve the puzzle while all of these things are coming down on top of them.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's the pulp action coming through. That's the flavor of the time period bleeding through. It's like heroics in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jenny Nexus, how's it going? You just showed up for the tail end of us designing an MMO horror game. Bear in mind, you don't have to make it. You're not responsible. So please, throw in crazy ideas if you want to. Jenny
Definitely.
if I'm not getting my usernames mixed up, Jenny just released a VR game last week, or this week? No, last week.
Okay.
So...
Congratulations.
Yeah. And Jenny, the friendo on Discord is my buddy Christian, who was a designer on a stupid number of games, but primarily for the reason of this, Alien Isolation. So yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry, let me go back down to the gameplay chunks as well, because there was still some... I'm going to approve that one. I don't know how big our tiles would be, because we might need it to be more tiles for the instancing stuff we wanted to do, but that's another matter.
I mean, we're not thinking about technicalities at the moment because we're not trying to make it. So
Yeah.
as long as it exists within the realm of possibility, I mean, we could have something which is more akin to Darkest Dungeon,
Yeah.
where it's just simple, very simple backgrounds. We could have something that's similar to XCOM,
Yeah.
where you've got very small, technically very small environments, but where a lot of stuff happens.
Just trying to think what else is worth saying. The other thing is that so this document and the first document, so I forked them just in case there ended up being a massive difference. This is all, for all intents and purposes, open source. So everyone is free to use these documents as a staging point, or because one thing I used to do with friendos who wanted to do practice doing concept art is we'd come up with fake concepts and they could then just sketch out and come from stuff. So people could use this.
Oh, totally.
The last piece
fill out the world, create a character, do a landscape shot if you want to do that, create a tiny idol, write a ritual, write a story about somebody coming off the boat, write a story about somebody coming back from an adventure, write it in the style of a newspaper article of something that happened.
And what's brilliant,
all of this stuff is just totally open source.
Yeah, so it's yours. If you if any of you do any of that stuff, you don't have to ask permission, because it can be really hard trying to come up with a concept and then do concept stuff from it of your own volition. It ain't easy.
To be a little bit sickening, Will, it's not just yours, it's all of ours. Because this is group based. You guys came up with the good ideas. It's not just me, the experienced person, quote unquote, who's coming up with ideas. You guys came up with loads of cool stuff.
Yeah, I apologize for misspeaking, but it's it was the idea that I think Winset initially proposed the question, and then we went with the rest of it. And
I caught fire once. I mean the Aztec death whistle is something that we could have the floating skull curse use.
Nah, dude, I want the death whistle to just, I want that to come, I want to save it, but I want it to come out across the jungles and make people.
I've just had a really good idea with that.
Go on.
What if the Aztec death whistle is like the Silent Hill air siren?
Oh, that would be so good. Because
it's just this thing echoing out across it. It's like, oh shit. We're pretty far away from the temple itself, therefore we've got a bit of time before weird shit starts happening, and it just goes completely pitch black. It's nighttime, this weird fog rolls in, whatever happens. For Roguelink's benefit, if you watch the first Silent Hill movie, because actually for a video game movie it's really good. But Silent Hill exists in almost an alternate horror dimension, where it'll be totally normal until this air raid siren starts, and then it'll go into the dark world. What was their name of it? I think it was the dark Silent Hill, or the dark world, where everything will have the same geometry, but all the paint will start stripping away from everything, and it'll look like rusted metal, and you won't see any of the horrific monsters during the normal times. They only come out when the air raid siren happens. And it's just a clue for people to run and hide and hope they don't find you.
Because
it's so good.
We want to mess with our players in subtle ways, but when it comes to and then you have to put bullets in the thing, and now the bad is coming. Giving them a warning isn't a bad thing. In fact, it enhances their experience, because they know what the brown noise is. They know the poopening is coming.
It's the technical term for it being not the poopening, but foreshadowing. But I like the poopening.
I think the poopening is more effective than foreshadowing in terms of what we want to achieve. I mean, we want the haunting horror. I mean, you were here when we said this last time. This game isn't meant to make you jump. It is not meant to scare you in a kind of way. When you've played a couple sessions of this, I want you to lay there in bed and be like, oh god.
What did I do? What did other people do? What did I see happen in front of me that I could do nothing about?
Yeah. I want people to sleep with the light on, having played this.
And Jenny, hey, Alien Isolation is we're really proud of it. It wasn't just me who made it. I'm gonna keep saying this because I know I want everybody who worked on it to get the credit. But yeah, it's one of the reasons why I really want to be doing this thing with you guys is because it gets me back to that same feeling we had when we were doing Alien Isolation, where jump scares were used in very specific occasions.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there was a big, bright light shining on the horrible thing, and you couldn't turn away. That's the kind of horror that we're sort of, I think that we're going for.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, and it's been great doing this with everybody. I mean, I know for this session awesome. We've kind of been leading the charge a little bit, but yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we pointed people in the direction, and you guys absolutely ran with it. I mean, most of the really good ideas came from you guys.
True that.
So, yeah, that's that kind of way I love designing, because if you design in a vacuum, then you miss all of this stuff. You don't play devil's advocate if you don't think about it. You don't get lots of different people's perspectives on something.
Yeah.
And it could be the thing that you are missing is inside someone's head, and it just needs to be triggered and then given out to the group. So
yeah,
you should be proud of yourself.
And designing, especially designing like this in a vacuum is real bad, because the only person who's feeding back is yourself, and you already know how a thing is going to work. So that's how you end up skipping massive chunks. And I'm just reiterating what you were saying earlier, Christian, about how, asking people what their inventory system's like when they're telling you about their concept, because if it's only you and yours doing a design, then oftentimes you can miss massive swaths of it. But because you do it in isolation, it can be real easy to get defensive at that point.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other good things about doing it in this way is that once you have an idea that maybe you missed or you glossed over, the group can make that idea fit the setting better than you can. So you may have an idea, each of you may have an idea for a really good inventory system. Let's just use that as an example.
Yeah.
But someone's idea mixed with someone else's idea, mixed with this person's idea, mixed with these items, creates something that works perfectly for this game.
Yeah, that's before we even have to think about implementation.
Exactly. So we don't have to care about all of this complicated stuff. This is a design exercise. This is to challenge you and to make you think about things. Yeah, I mean, there is an element of kill your darlings, DJ, but I'm an advocate of knowing when to fight your. Well, it's like knowing when to pick your battles.
Yeah.
It's actually better. I think a better phrase than "kill your darlings" is actually learn to let go. It's a lot better than anything else, because when you don't get precious about something, I think that's probably a better way of looking at it. Don't go out there with the idea that your idea is crap, because then you won't care about it.
Yeah.
And you obviously do care about your ideas, so there's no you're kind of belaboring the point to call them your babies or your darlings, but learn to let go, learn to let that idea get away from you, rather than just necessarily killing it, because some people can run with your idea and make it better than you could have done. So like a proud parent, you have to give birth to this idea and then let it go and let someone else take it in a direction that suits the game best or suits the experience best.
Yeah. I mean, here's me agreeing. So I learned that from working with you on concepts. So, I mean, yeah. One of these days, everybody, and this will be another one for when we all get around with a pint. I'll tell you about some of the concepts that Christian and I put together, and some of them are just choice. And yeah,
I mean, one of them is very, very similar to this.
Yeah.
Original character, do not steal.
Sanic the Hedgehog. A DJ alternative with, I don't know, I like killing babies more. Don't take that out of context.
Proceeds to take that completely out of context.
So while we've got Christian, because we're probably going to be bringing the the design part of this stream to a close. I might play some video games after this. I was going to play Mech Warrior, but I just checked on Steam, and there's a fecking, like, there's a 2 gig update.
Mega update.
I'm like, ugh. So I don't know what I'm going to play. But we'll definitely, I'll bring the stream to a close because I want to upload this in its entirety. But anyway, so while we still have Christian, do you have any more questions? Is there anything else that you would all like to ask? Like, we have a game, we all understand what that game would be like to play, and I don't think we'll do part 3 on this because then we're just designing, like, you know, percentages.
The actual game.
Yeah. But, you know.
But I mean, like, this is your guy, because it's open source and because it's a collaborative effort and a group effort.
Yeah.
Take some of the stuff away from this. Take away one thing, or take away a way of looking at your ideas, and roll that into your other creative stuff. You know, if you're an artist, maybe use this as, you know, as a springboard to draw something you haven't done before. If you haven't done characters, but you really want to do characters, then do something like that. If you've not done landscapes, maybe paint a landscape. And if you're designers or you're just interested in this kind of thing, just see what you can take from the creative process. It doesn't need to be exactly this. It can be something that you learned as a sort of side note from whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
I do not have a Twitch channel. I do have a Twitter. It is at Rust_Weaver, because people always get in before I manage to get that name, annoyingly. I was the first one on World of Warcraft to have Rustweaver, thankfully. So
that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
There's a lot of other Rustweavers on there now, but you know, the OC, the OR, the original Rustweaver.
Do not steal.
Me. Do not steal. Yeah. Do not steal, because I already stole it from Diablo. I mean, hello.
Oh. Yeah, Jenny.
It is a very obscure reference.
Have a lovely day, and we will. Like, hopefully I'll be able to catch up with you and Yules at the next sober meet a little bit better, because, yeah, I've really enjoyed doing these group exercises, and now we need to work out what's the next one of these we're going to do. That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something completely crazy. I mean, you guys can suggest stuff. There's a Discord channel.
Indeed.
You should go to, which is the Longboat.
Thank you for that plug.
That is okay. And also, we've got this document up, so if you want to put a link in again, Will, to the document, you know, that is available for people to run with effectively.
Yeah. So there's the Discord.
I'm available for consultancy work if you do actually really want to try and make an MMO out of this, or a small experience. My rates are very reasonable. So You can hire me. You can hire me to finish off the idea that we started. So, but yeah, this has been really great. So thanks to you, Will, for inviting me on here. It's been awesome,
dude. It's been super cool.
Even as a busman's holiday.
Dude, and thank you for coming, yo. Right, so
you're welcome.
So everybody, I'm going to bring the stream down, and then we'll decide what fun games to play with the afternoon. So that'll be a thing to be continued. But yeah. Once again, Christian, thank you so much for coming on. And everybody who's been hanging out. Holy crap, we designed a horror game MMO. Like
in 2 sessions.
In 2 sessions. So next time someone tells you, it can't be done. Oh, there's no way players could do that. No, you just work through it, yo. Just don't be precious. Yeah. Okay.
Believe.
You gotta believe. Right. Lovely hanging with you all. And we'll see you soon. Peace.
Catch you later, guys.